Last round, Jake Maloney took over the lead of the championship at the Winton Super Sprint in a dominant display, claiming his 6th win of the season. He took over from Kurt Steinberg, who had a difficult time with a few costly errors. Tonight, we're in Hidden Valley. It's round 7, and it's the Darwin Triple Crown. A slightly different challenge for most, with the first top 10 shootout in a championship round since the season opener in Adelaide. Can it possibly be as dramatic as the previous round in Winton? Let's find out. Bringing you all the action tonight, my name's Stairs. Madbird joins me in the commentary box once again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Stairs. Very excited to be here, as always. Very excited to see how we all do tonight. Can Kurt Steinberg wrestle back that championship lead? No wins so far in the season for the man, but he's just always been there or thereabouts, which is how he's maintaining only 21 points down in the driver championship. 1356 points versus 1335 points for Kurt Steinberg in second place. Brody Steen for Race on Oz with another dominant weekend. Well, not dominant, but a very good result last time out in Phillip Island. Not Phillip Island. Where were we? Winton. Do apologise for Race on Oz.
To think about that.
Colin Warwick with a pretty decent haul of points up in 4th place. Sean Allen in the other Race on Oz car, also with decent performances the last couple of rounds, in 5th place. Will Devonish 6th. Corey Preston in 7th. Glenn Postlethwaite dropped off a little bit in 8th. Zach Baker in 9th. And Adam Zeitinger for Astro Altus Esports rounds out our top 10. And onto the teams there, Stairs.
Yes, the team's championship currently being dominated by the Race on Oz team, with Sean Allen's 2 victories in the Barbagallo around the Perth Super Night, and of course his teammate Brody Steen doing a pretty good job as well. Trans-Tasman Racing haven't collected points from both of their drivers in a lot of the rounds, with Emily Jones absent for a number of them and not having a particularly good round in the last few times. She's here tonight, so she'll be eager to rectify that. She, of course, won the opening race way back in Adelaide. War Race Engineering, another 2-car team with Oz Rob and Will Devonish collecting quite a few points there, and they're up there in 3rd. TTL Esports, Jake Maloney, really the only man flying the flag for them, and good enough to get them up into 4th place. Actually running the ZB Commodore there now, so I just got to put a bit of a bookmark to myself to update that graphic. Astro Altus Esports in 5th place ahead of Logitech G Altus Esports. That's an interesting inter-team rivalry between the two Altus teams, just 3 points separating them. ZB Racing in 7th place. CWR now defunct because Colin Warwick's moved on to another team on 855, JMSR 852, and Synergy Sim Racing starting to drop down. A while ago they had 3 different teams of their own teams in the top 10. Now it's just the one, so hopefully we get to see some more of those guys in the future.
Yeah, definitely. We did talk about at length about them putting all of their eggs in one basket. Looks like those eggs are starting to fall out of the basket and smash upon the ground. So tonight we have the one qualifying, which is a shootout. We've got race 1 of 21 laps. Then we've got second qualifying, obviously, and a top 10 shootout for the main race, which is 35 laps here in Darwin, Stairs, Hidden Valley Raceway.
That's it. I believe the second shortest racetrack on the calendar, 2.87 kilometres. And, of course, not quite as short as Simmons Plains. We don't go under the 1 minute barrier, but we go mighty close. 1 minute 5 flat at the moment is the fastest time in practice. That held down by Ethan Warren, who had a pretty good round last time out in Winton with 2 second places. Didn't get a lot of airtime, Madbird, it has to be said, because Jake Maloney, beg your pardon, was a long way ahead of him, and Ethan Warren was a long way ahead of 3rd place. That was basically where all the battles were going on. I believe we've got a winner in the Super 2 race that's just concluded.
Yeah, so Super 2 is just concluded, as you said. We've got Instinct in 1st place there in the Ford Mustang. So he'll get the call up to join in on the full class supercars race tonight, as will second place man JP Courier, who I believe joined us last time out as well. Obviously with some good showings here in the Super 2, and Termo rounding out the podium there at Hidden Valley for Super 2. So expect to maybe see those blokes hopping over. It's going to be a long night of racing for them if they do decide to hop across, but do hope we can get them in. Looks like Termo has already joined.
Well, good luck to all of those guys coming across, and congratulations on their wildcard entries to the top class. You're right, it is a lot of racing tonight, a lot of driving with the 2 qualifying sessions and the top 10 shootout. More on that later, of course. The race distance, though, that's fairly standard, 60 and a 100 kilometre race. One of them with a pit stop and the other one without a pit stop, as we watch J-Borg coming in. Just 2 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, in practice session, I beg your pardon, not a qualifying session at all. Let's have a look at the top 10 as it stands. So Thomas Mcmillan has just jumped up to the top of the leaderboard, and he's one who's on a fairly good run of form at the moment. He won the non-championship round, the Perth 197.5, quite handsomely after nearly finishing on the podium in the last round, just running out of fuel in the feature race at Winton.
Absolutely, I was quite happy about that. His friend Lewis Kigali does owe me $10. Hasn't emerged as of yet, but yes, I did call that he would drop off the podium, and indeed he did. Very disappointing end for him for a very strong race. Just lost that third position in the race on that last corner. Colin Warwick getting a decent result for a very, very pacey race out at Winton. Just sitting here, we've got a minute left in practice. At the moment, Thomas Mcmillan, fastest of the men out on track. Ethan Warren, who's returned in second, and Colin Warwick in third. So showing that their pace is not a flash in the pan. Ethan Warren, we know, is an alien, and Sean Allen in fourth place currently in practice. So very decent results there for Race on Oz Racing.
Emily Jones somehow has managed to get herself disqualified from this practice session, so I don't know if she was going the wrong way down the drag strip or something like that, but she is currently DQ'd. Only 30 seconds remaining in the session, so it doesn't particularly matter. No times from Cam Rutledge, Wayne Carr, Termo, and Jake Maloney. Kurt Steinberg's just put in a time of a 105.1 to put himself up into third place. He was the other one who hadn't set a time up to that point. So it looks like he's got the pace, of course. And, well, Jake Maloney, what's he doing? Is he disguising his pace, maybe?
Could be. Just trying to I mean, we know he's going to be quick because he's Jake Maloney, and he's been blisteringly quick at every round thus far. Kurt Steinberg just hasn't had the pace to live with him, but that increased pace has meant that Jake is more prone to mistakes, and when he makes mistakes, they cost him big. And Kurt just sort of always getting the job done, not necessarily in a spectacular way, but usually towards the pointy end of the grid, generally on the podium, he's kept him in the points. And indeed, as we said, only lost the points lead in the championship at last race, which, considering he has no wins so far, and Jake Maloney has 6 now, is kind of incredible. But that's how the points in V8 supercars work. If you don't finish a race, if you DNF from a race, you make it's a huge loss of points, and it can have a major effect on your championship tilt.
Most certainly can. For those following along at home, if you want to check all of the championship points, jump onto the Facebook page, Automobilista Supercars Championship, and you can find links to all of that. The point system we're using is the same as the one used by the real-life Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, which awards 150 points for a victory, 138 for second place, 129 for third place. Going down in fairly small increments, it has to be said, all the way down to 40th place, hypothetically, but we will only have 21 cars in this particular race as it stands, so basically the premium is very much on finishing, because even if you're in last, you're going to get a handy chunk of points as opposed to someone who DNFs.
Yeah, like I said, just it's a huge penalty if you do DNF, which we've seen people sort of poodling around just to finish the race rather than retire with damage, which from a championship point of view is the correct thing to do. But I imagine as one of the drivers, it's quite frustrating to sort of put yourself out of contention early on. So hopefully we don't see anyone doing that tonight. We've got 21 drivers here who all would dearly love to take the race win. Probably got a handful of drivers who we expect have got a decent chance of taking the race win. Just remains to be seen who is going to take the race win. Stairs. That was a very roundabout way of saying that. I do apologise. Looks like we've got some issues here with Jake Maloney and David Nanadek clipping into each other in the pits. So that's definitely not something to be greatly desired. They're sort of both edging their way out of the pits, and it's almost like a horror show. It's like something from Alien. It's Jake Maloney's going to burst forth from David Nenedick and, scuttle off across the table, and John Hurt's going to scream, and it's going to be very bad for everyone involved, but it still hasn't resolved itself, and they've just sort of rolled. They're almost blocking the pit lane a little bit. Car just sneaks past. Oh, there we go. Jake Maloney's appeared behind him just as David Nenedick reverses, but manages to pull up in time. Meanwhile, we have cars getting out onto track. Stairs.
Yeah, Corey Preston, the first man out onto the racetrack. It looks like Jake Maloney just exited back to his garage, and thankfully they'd both gone forward far enough that Zach Baker was no longer colliding with him. Corey Preston was the first man out on track, but he's allowed a lot of cars to go past him. So let's see, who is the first man on the racetrack? It's a bit difficult to see because they don't come out in the order that we can't go through them in the order that they are on the racetrack at the moment. Let's follow Zach Baker and see how he negotiates this outlap, because as we said before, it is quite a busy lap, quite a short lap, and that means that traffic becomes quite a difficult prospect. Well, that'll certainly come into its own a little bit later on when we have the short 5-minute qualifying session immediately preceding the top 10 shootout. It'll be very easy for some people to get their laps completely compromised, and they won't get too many more opportunities for it. So Zach Baker's struggling to find himself a bit of clear track here. He can't really back off too much because he's got can't quite tell who that is behind him, but anyway, it's a little bit of a challenge. Let's go on board with Zach Baker as he tries to set his first flying lap of this qualifying session down the straight. And one of the longest straights, it has to be said, even though it is a short racetrack, one of the longest straights in this championship. Guy ahead just locking up. And this double apex turn 1. A number of lines you can possibly take through there, and then all of a sudden you're going up the hill, trying not to unsettle the car too much on the curbs, down into turn 5. Engine braking is very, very severe there, up towards the hairpin. Cars getting out of the way left and right, and a nice line there for Zach Baker. He wants to square the car up quite nicely. Fairly uneventful in the traction zone. We're just seeing Colin Warwick. I think he's the first man to come across the line. We'll see a time pop up from him in a short moment. Zach Baker, though, all over the curbs in the final sector. Ethan Warren sets the fastest time of a 4.5. Colin Warwick's about 1.2 seconds behind that. Corey Preston slots in between them. Zach Baker's about to come to the line. Can he split the guys up at the top? He has jumped into third place. Good job, ahead of Kurt Steinberg. Ethan Warren at the top on a 104.5 currently.
Yeah, Ethan Warren just blisteringly quick, as we have seen in the past. Thomas Mcmillan in second place, so showing up, backing up some decent pace last time out at Winton. And Zach Baker, as you say, third, although he has just been bumped out by Jake Maloney. Disguising his pace, he's just at a 104.9, so only about 4/10 behind Ethan Warren. I reckon he's got more time in him. Kurt Steinberg, 5th place. Corey Preston in 6th. Nigel Marneath in 7th. Colin Warwick, who set a pretty decent time, is already pedaled down the field to 8th. Brody Steen in 9th and Jay Borger in 10th. Currently, only Termo has joined us from Super 2, so we do only have the 21 drivers as we advised. Sorry, 22 drivers. I don't know how to count.
Very good. Kurt Stenberg's on another personal best lap here, so he looks like he's going to improve on his position currently of 6th place. He moves up two spots just behind Jake Maloney there. Ethan Warren still holding down that top spot ahead of Thomas Mcmillan. And speaking of Super 2 drivers, congratulations are in order for Jinx, who's recently been given the green light to jump up into the top class and become a full-time Automobilista Supercars driver in the Premier category. So, who else have we got on track? Let's have a look at the lap times. Green lap there for Jinx. He moves up into 9th place. Great job from him. And Ethan Warren, just quite a few cars at the moment just coming out of the pit lane. And that was very, very close between, can't see who that is, and the War Race Engineering guys. It's Thomas Mcmillan, who's changed his livery once again. Looks like they're slipstreaming the two War Race Engineering guys.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. That main straight is quite long, and it looks as if they might be taking turns as well. I just saw Colin Warwick, Will Devonish making the overtake on Ozrob, so might be a bit like Red Bull in Formula One, how they take turns in giving each other the slipstream during qualifying. It's a little bit cheeky, but there's nothing to say you can't do it, and it's quite smart from a strategy point of view.
Fine.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll get to see if Ozrob is going to get a slipstream behind Will Devonish. Will Devonish sort of getting up the road away from him, so he's going to want his teammate to slow down a little bit to get the full benefit of that slipstream. And Will Devonish has just buggered off up the road, so I don't think he's going to get any. He's not going to get any big benefit from that at all. And indeed, he comes into the pits. So never mind us. Matt Lepoitoven.
Matt Lepoitoven, who is driving the stealth car, I believe, in place of Jay Borg, who was in that car last round, teaming up with Colin Warwick. So he up into 12th place. Corey Preston's just moved his way up into 9th place with a PB lap, 0.3 faster than his previous best. Let's see who else is on a fast lap. Doesn't look like anyone's setting the sector times alight just now. Jake Maloney going very, very wide at the first corner, but we have seen that there are a number of possible lines there as Madbird precariously places his iPad on top of my Fanatec, which, well, if it stays there for the night, I won't make any bets with you because you seem to win them.
Absolutely. Again, Lewis Kugler, give me my $10. Ozrob has fallen down the order to 20th since we last saw him, but all eyes are at the front of the field where currently we have Jake Maloney out there trying to set a hot lap. He's coming up towards the sector time. He just beat his PB in the first sector, the second sector. As he's coming around the last corner, he's going to want to get a decent shot off this last corner to get a good run onto this straight if he's wanting to overtake that lead of Ethan Warren and Thomas Mcmillan. Don't think he's going to better his time. I might be wrong. I am wrong. He does better his time up into second place, so jumps Thomas Mcmillan. Only 1/100th of a second, 1/10th of a second, behind Ethan Warren in first place. I reckon he's got even more time in him. I think he can take that pole, Stairs.
Absolutely does, and he's got plenty of time to do it. There's still nearly 3 minutes remaining in the session. Thomas Mcmillan has a right of reply right now. He's currently on a lap, but 0.3 slower than his best lap so far in the qualifying session. On this particular occasion, he's not going to improve. Who else is on a lap? Kurt Steinberg, no good.
Jake Maloney is over a 1/10 of a second up on his time through the first sector. So it's looking good for him to carry on this roll and get up onto the front of the podium. Sorry, not the front of the podium, the front of the grid. 2.5 tenths better than his previous lap time in the second sector, and almost 2/10 above Ethan Warren's time through the second sector. Gets a decent exit from that last corner. He's just gone over a minute. He's going to slingshot himself across this line, and he manages to not take it by 0.07 of a second. He is behind Ethan Warren, so just losing out on that exit from that last corner just that little bit, but he's not to be deterred. He's flung himself into that first corner, and he's going to go around again, Stairs.
Well, we saw an incredibly tight qualifying margin between Jake Maloney and Ethan Warren in the previous round in Winton, didn't we? It was 0.02 of a second, the difference between them, and what I have to say was the best qualifying session of this entire championship. The lead changed, or pole changed hands 3 times in the final minute of the session. Can we see something like that occurring tonight? Well, so far, as Jake Maloney struggles to get past a bit of traffic, it's not looking like it's going to happen. That was a huge wiggle from Jake Maloney.
Absolutely. He's not going to be able to get back out in time if he returns to the pits at this stage. So that is his qualifying tilt complete. He might be able to get back around, actually. Sorry, pardon my French. He's probably going to be able to get back around if he's fueled for another lap, which it appears that he is. He's continuing on. Kurt Steinberg, meanwhile, has managed to get himself up into third place. So that's good for him. Jake Maloney into the pits. That's it. So no pole for Jake Maloney. Ethan Warren also in the pits, so he's not going to try and improve his time. Kurt Steinberg is still out on track, but he's 0.2 down through the first sector, so doesn't look good for him. Thomas Mcmillan in the pits, and Kurt Steinberg spins. Well, not spins, but he did a little bit of drifting, a little bit of deja vu. through that corner there and is down on his time, so he will not be improving. Looks as if the top 3 on the grid are set, and it couldn't be set up any better. On a track that Kurt Stenberg made, he's in 3rd place behind his championship rival, Jake Maloney, who just couldn't get the job done over Ethan Warren. Stairs.
Zach Baker's currently down on his PB, but not by an awful lot, and he only needs to find about half a tenth to jump up ahead of Colin Warwick for 5th place. Colin Warwick's currently in the pit lane, so he can't do anything. The timer has hit 0, so all of the laps that people are currently on, so we hear someone in the background having an almighty accident. Oh goodness, Emily Jones has had a big accident there. I hope that hasn't affected Zach Baker's, well, that's affected Zach Baker's lap. He's gone off, or was that just lag? Let's see. I think, no, it's not going to be fast enough here. 1:03. The time's ticking away just a little bit too close. And he is 0.6 slower than his personal best, so he doesn't improve. Ethan Warren is the pole sitter for race 1 in Hidden Valley.
Absolutely. Unless Corey Preston manages to pull out an incredible lap, he is currently the only man out on track. He is going to better his time, I think, but not enough to make any dent on that 9th place, I don't believe, as he comes across the line with a 1:05.2, does not improve his time, and that is all she wrote for qualifying here at Hidden Valley. Although, as I say that, Ozrob is actually still out on track, the last man, and he comes across, improving his time by 0.4, but still only good enough for 21st, which is, I believe, last on the grid. So we've had someone drop out by the looks of it, which is a shame. But regardless, as you say, Ethan Warren, followed by Jake Maloney, Kurt Stenberg, and Thomas Mcmillan is the front 2 rows of the grid. Stairs. And I got to tell you, I'm very excited.
Yes, it looks good for Kurt Stenberg. He needs to pull back a few points on Jake Maloney, and what better place to do that than a racetrack that he built himself. And so he'll know every square pixel of this particular racetrack. And when this racetrack debuted in the Automobilista Australia Supercars race last round, he took victory, and that was his first race in that particular championship last year.
Yeah, as you say, he's got no excuse for not being familiar with the track, so I expect he will do well here.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we will come back with all the action from race 1. Welcome to the previous round recap, brought to you by Apex Rear Wing. A flawless Jake Maloney led away from pole position at the Winton Super Sprint in round 6, as Ethan Warren came under threat at the first corner from Barbagallo race winner Sean Allen. But it didn't work out for the Race on Oz driver, and he would lose out on the next corner to an opportunistic Kurt Stenberg, eager to protect his championship lead. After dropping out of qualifying, Thomas Mcmillan, starting from the back, was on an absolute tear, forcing his way through the field until a spin from an ambitious dive on David Nenovich dropped him back a couple of positions. Meanwhile, closer to the front, the narrow Winton circuit was claiming victims, as Steinberg found himself just marginally wide at the turn 5 sweeper, a big enough error to allow Sean Allen back up to 3rd place. A double retirement was very costly for War Race Engineering, Will Devonish with a malfunctioning paddle shifter, and Ozrob with a connection issue. They were joined as non-finishers by Michael Ford, Emily Jones, and Colin Warwick in what proved to be an attritional race. Fighting back, Kurt Stenberg threw everything at Sean Allen, but the round 5 winner was able to withstand the pressure and hold on to 3rd place. No one could touch Jake Maloney, who came home to take the victory by 10 seconds over Ethan Warren. The big mover was Thomas Mcmillan, up 12 spots from his starting position to finish 7th. A fierce qualifying battle kicked off the action for race 2, with pole changing hands 3 times in the final minute of the session. Maloney, Mcmillan and Ethan Warren all having a turn. But it was Maloney who nabbed it back at the death and resisted another late charge from Ethan Warren, who ended up just 0.02 of a second off pole position. Race 2 got underway at a light simmer, without too many close battles to speak of. The main talking point of the opening laps was Sean Allen arguing over 5th place with Colin Warwick after losing the spot to him at the start. Jake Maloney once again drove off into the distance, with Ethan Warren holding off the charge from Thomas Mcmillan, who was eager to grab 2nd place. The pit stops proved disastrous for Mcmillan, overshooting his pit box and losing at least 5 seconds in the process.
I saw him reverse.
Coming out of the pits on cold tyres, Colin Warwick would lose a net 5th place to Sean Allen, who already had his tyres up to temperature. Unseen on the broadcast, Kurt Steinberg lost a huge amount of time during the pit stop phase, dropping a number of positions. After many laps keeping Colin Warwick at bay, Sean Allen made a rare mistake and spun around at turn 9, falling back towards Zach Baker and Kurt Steinberg, giving Kurt an opportunity to climb past both of them. The race was not without a few more surprises though, as Steinberg again made a couple of critical errors and allowed Sean Allen through for 5th. Kurt fought back as hard as he could, but ultimately could not wrestle back the position. Jake Maloney took over the championship lead with another dominant drive, taking victory by 15 seconds over second place man Ethan Warren. During the final stint, Colin Warwick had been quietly chipping away at Thomas Mcmillan, who had been significantly fuel saving after his botched pit stop, and heartbreakingly fell short of the podium when his car coughed coming out of the final corner.
Colin Warwick gets onto the podium at the death! Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us wherever you're watching around the country or indeed the world. We're here in Kota, Monaco,
Sydney, Imola,
Shanghai, Albert Park, Austria, Suzuka.
Down the inside of Pablo, and there's contact.
Spun out already.
They've had to double stack.
Tyres that you could dig them up and look at them on the fossil records.
So Usain Bolt of hairpins.
He's missing a rear tyre.
Welcome back everyone to the Darwin Triple Crown. We've just had qualifying for race 1 and Ethan Warren sits on pole position. He'll start ahead of championship leader Jake Maloney. Madbird?
Absolutely, with not Colin Warwick, Kurt Steinberg right behind him. It's looking to be a spicy start. I believe we saw in the AMS Oz race here that Kurt Steinberg takes some wildly differing lines through the first corner compared to other people. Likes to go quite deep and get a slingshot out. So it'll be interesting to see who has the better start off the line, and who takes a better line into the first corner. We have everyone just sitting in the pit lane. Jake Maloney wisely not inside David Nededick as we go to the racetrack. Everyone's going to be grinning up in just a moment for the first race, and indeed we've got people popping out there already. So I'm very excited, Stairs. 21 laps here at Hidden Valley. I want to see Kurt Steinberg take that fight to Jake Maloney. We haven't seen a proper battle between them for quite a few rounds. They've always sort of had their own separate issues that have brought them back into play with one another. I want to see them bumper to bumper. And the grid here at Hidden Valley, quite good for that, because the first row is not really a row. They're diagonally spaced pretty evenly. Kurt Steinberg quite close there to the back left-hand corner of Jake Maloney's car. So we're about to start the warm-up lap, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Stairs. Run us through the grid.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll just wait for them to start their warm-up lap. But yeah, I can't wait for a potential battle between Jake Maloney and Kurt Steinberg myself. Just 21 points separate them in the championship, and that, considering that there are 300 points on offer for a win, is absolutely nothing. But that noise that you can hear right now, and the vision that you can see of the cars taking their, making their way down the start-finish line, is the start of the warm-up lap. So let's go through them. Ethan Warren, as we mentioned earlier, sublime in pole position, not a long way ahead of Jake Maloney, but he gets another pole position to add to his total. Kurt Steinberg, third place on the grid, and he'll be hoping for a good night tonight, trying to horse back some points on the championship leader Jake Maloney. Thomas Mcmillan, last race winner in this championship, but in a non-championship round, unfortunately for him, was victorious at the Perth Street Circuit in the Perth 197.5. So new livery for him. Let's see if it brings a new run of form for him in this championship. Colin Warwick starts behind him in 5th place, and Zach Baker in 6th, first of the two Zach Baker cars. Brody Steen in 7th place, beats his teammate Sean Allen in qualifying once again. Nigel Marneath, great qualifying from him, up a bit further than we've seen him in recent times. Corey Preston in 9th place, and Sean Allen in 10th. Adam Zeitinger for Astro Altus Esports in 11th place, ahead of Will Devonish. Matt Lepoitovan out of position there by the looks of it in one of the Penrite cars. We did actually have Jay Borg in tonight, which I neglected to notice before. Jinx, in his move up to the Premier category, starts out of 14th. There is Jay Borg, before mentioned. So we've got 3 Penrite cars now. David Nenadich, long way back in 16th place. We're not used to seeing him. Had a bad round in Winton. Emily Jones in 17th. Turmo in 18th. Scott Nolan rejoins for Synergy Sim Racing in 19th. Wayne Carr for Rock Solid Mates in 20th. Cam Rutledge in 21st. Oz Rob, the final man on the grid, and we're used to seeing him a bit further up.
Absolutely. A few people out of position. I would expect Emily Jones to be higher up as well. Although I feel like I say that every time she shows up, and she just seems to be a little bit off with pace at the moment. Regardless, lights are about to come on, Stairs.
That they are. I think the championship competitiveness has really hotted up in the recent rounds, and I think Emily has been quite rudely shocked by that. But here come the lights. We're about to go racing at the top end here in Darwin for the Triple Crown, and a great launch from everyone apart from Jake Maloney, who's going to get swamped down to the line. Kurt Steinberg up the inside, and Thomas Mcmillan also with a pretty good start. He gets clear. Look at that. 2 spots at least lost by Jake Maloney down to the first corner. Ethan Warren's going to lead them through. Kurt Steinberg coming under a little bit of pressure from Thomas Mcmillan. What else is new there? Thomas Mcmillan feisty, and looks like but further back in the field, Colin Warwick, where he started in 5th place. There's some 2-wide action going on there between Nigel Marneef and one of the Race on Oz cars, which I believe is Brody Steen.
Yeah, absolutely. Very shaky there between Brody Steen and Nigel Marneef. Nigel all over the back of him, tries to go around the outside at the hairpin. I don't think he's going to be able to get the job done. Just no traction out there, and he's falling into the clutches of Sean Allen, the other Race on Oz car. These guys are just inseparable at the moment, and as you say, at the front, Kurt Stenberg having a dream start right onto the back of Ethan Warren, who's been a little bit ragged this lap. It is only the opening lap, but Jake Maloney, the big story, down 2 places from the start of the race. Thomas Mcmillan making that jump.
Now let's see what sort of a slipstream effect we have down this main straight now. Kurt Stenberg pulls out from behind Ethan Warren. Is he close enough to have a look down into the first corner? He most certainly isn't, but look at the gap they've already pulled. 1.3 seconds on the guys behind them as Jake Maloney now makes his way back past Thomas Mcmillan, but Thomas Mcmillan will have the inside down into turn 5 if they can continue to be side by side all the way through here. Jake Maloney got it all sorts of crossed up on the curb, but he's managed to try and get around the outside of turn 5, which will give him the inside for the hairpin. Absolutely fantastic driving, and look at Colin Warwick forcing his way through. Thomas Mcmillan may well lose 2 spots in as many corners, but he manages to hold on just for now, which gives Jake Maloney a little bit of breathing space. Wasn't expecting to be using this octave so early in the race.
It's very early for you to be pulling out the pipes. Do take a rest. Colin Warwick all over the back of Thomas Mcmillan, who would be quite dirty on himself for not managing to hold on to that 3rd position. Jake Maloney now got to set about trying to cut down this gap to 2nd place, which at the moment is 1.5 seconds. Won't be getting much slipstream at that sort of distance. Corey Preston, up into 6th place. 3 positions gained in the first 2 laps from him, and he's all over the back of Colin Warwick, who is, it looks as if Jake Maloney has had a very wide entry through the first corner. It hasn't cost him anything, but Thomas Mcmillan now only 4 tenths behind him. He's going to be having a run down into the hairpin, I would expect. He's going to break a little bit later there than Jake Maloney, and just doesn't quite hit the apex the way that Jake did. And he's actually lost a bit of time as Kurt Stenberg locks up ahead of them, but manages to hold on to that position. No loss so far, as my goodness, it's been a hairy couple of laps.
You said Thomas...
Oh, Sean Allen!
Oh, Sean Allen's had a big moment. We're staying with the leaders to try and find a replay of the moment for Sean Allen. He's dropped down to 15th? 20th place. There he is. Let's try and catch the replay.
Emily Jones as well.
Emily Jones has had a moment. This is coming out of the hairpin, and Emily Jones has had a moment at the very same corner by the looks of it. So that's a lot of action in very short order. Jake Maloney, what I was about to say about him before I was rudely interrupted by cars crashing, and Emily Jones is now out of the race, unfortunately, as a result of that. You said before Thomas Mcmillan may well be dirty on himself for letting Jake Maloney through. Kurt Stenberg will probably also be a bit dirty on Thomas Mcmillan for letting Jake Maloney through.
Absolutely, especially considering that Jake Maloney just set the fastest lap of the race. and has cut this lead to Kurt Stenberg. Cut this gap to Kurt Stenberg down by about 4/10 in the last lap. Kurt Stenberg again locking up into that hairpin in his quest to get past Ethan Warren and put a buffer between himself and Jake Maloney. And Ethan Warren will be a pretty aggressive buffer to have between yourself and your championship rival. Kurt is right on the back of him, hasn't given him any space at all these first few laps, and gets a decent run out the last corner. Looks as if Ethan Warren maybe went a little bit too wide. Is Kurt going to have a go into the first corner? Not sure he's close enough. In fact, I don't believe he is, although he is gaining as they're heading down towards the first corner. I think he's going to have to slot in behind, and he does. Just breaks a little bit later there by the looks of it. Gains some time. Ethan Warren a little bit ragged through that first corner. Car trying to get away from him. Kurt Stenberg looking cool, calm, and collected everywhere except that hairpin. Let's see if he locks up there again this lap as they go into turn 5. Just breaks that a little bit later. Rides that curb. He built this track. He's going to know where it's safe to do that and where it isn't. As he comes into the hairpin, doesn't lock up and builds quite a bit of time over Ethan Warren through that corner. But right behind him, Jake Maloney now within a second. That's going to come down that straight stairs. That's going to be some slipstream action for Jake Maloney on Kurt Stenberg.
9 points is the difference between third place and second place, so that would be all that Kurt Stenberg would claw back on Jake Maloney if it were to finish as it stands right now. And I say that with my tongue firmly pressed inside my cheek because I don't think it's going to finish the way that it is currently. We've got a pit stop coming for Cam Rutledge, so perhaps damage for him. And Emily Jones remains the only retirement in this race. We've got a drive-through penalty now for Cam Rutledge, presumably for speeding in the pit lane.
That is some very bad luck there for Cam Rutledge. Must have had some damage to be repaired, which is why he had to pit in the first place. Is now a lap down to everyone except for Wayne Carr, who we've got Ben Thompson in the chat saying go Wayne Carr. Unfortunately, Wayne is currently running down in 20th place. But as we said in the it looks like someone's been shoved wide there through the hairpin and has just managed to hold onto it. Very well done, that man, whoever that man happens to be.
Yeah, that was a replay of Brodie Steen getting it all crossed up. Corey Preston getting it all crossed up, losing the position to Brodie Steen, who's now up into 6th place after having a bit of a frightful start.
That's a shame for the Race on Oz Racing guys. Looks as if Kurt Stenberg, Jake Maloney and Ethan Warren has sort of calmed down here a bit, about 8/10 between each of them. And that doesn't seem to be coming down in a hurry as they all sort of concertina up into the first corner. Brodie Steen defending from Corey Preston, who has lost that position to Brodie Steen. He was up 3 from his start, he's now up 2. So Brodie Steen managing to get that position back on Corey Preston. As Nigel Marneef behind them, just keeping an eye on this, because these two look like they're getting pretty racy. It might come to blows, possibly here at the hairpin. Zach Baker down 3 positions from his start, right behind Nigel Marneef. He won't be happy. He'll want to try to make those positions back, and indeed he's all over the gearbox there of Nigel Marneef. So a lot of close little battles on track stairs. Jake Maloney now within 3/10 of Kurt Stenberg at the front. That is incredibly close. Just dipped under 0.2 of a second as they came around the last corner. Jake Maloney going to have some slipstream here, I think, down into turn 1. Not sure it's going to be enough to get the job done, but he is mighty close, much closer than Kurt Stenberg is to Ethan Warren ahead of him. He's not going to be able to get the job done into the first corner unless Kurt Stenberg has a mistake. Doesn't appear to.
No, Kurt Stenberg still a little bit of breathing space between himself and Jake Maloney, but Ethan Warren is one who we certainly can say is having a bit of breathing space as Zach Baker makes a move up on Nigel Marneef. We can see that on our other monitor. So Ethan Warren is lapping in the low 105s, 105.1 the last time around. Kurt Stenberg was about 2 or 3/10 slower than Ethan last time around as he begins to look in his mirrors more and more.
Exactly. He's going to be paying far too much attention to Jake Maloney behind him and not enough attention to his racing line. I think he's going to start going quite defensive, just try to hold on to this second place over Jake Maloney. And I don't think that's going to work out. They've just come around the last corner and Jake Maloney is incredibly close behind him.
Just props there to David Nenadic, up 4 spots from where he started. It was uncharacteristically low qualifying session from him, and he's doing a good job to recover. Looks like they've just gone through and lapped. Who is that? Is that Cam Rutledge?
So,
after his pit stop. Kurt Stenberg stays ahead of Jake Maloney for another lap. And let's look at the lap time advantage. 1.5 tenths of a second taken out of Kurt Stenberg by Jake Maloney on the previous lap.
Still holds the fastest lap time as they go through turn 5 up towards the hairpin. God, Jake Maloney is right on his bumper as Kurt Stenberg locks up again. Just not enough of a lapse in racecraft. I don't know if I've ever said that before. Just not enough.
Or will again.
Or to let Jake Maloney through, but it is now under 0.2 of a second between the two of them. Jake Maloney right on the back of him. He's going to have an incredible run down the straight if he manages to hold onto his rear bumper through the last corner, which it looks like he has. He's had a very, very good run. Incredible run through the last corner. He is going to be all over the back of him, and he is already gaining with that slipstream advantage. The last time out, that lapped runner Cam Rutledge gave Kurt Stenberg just a little bit of slipstream. He's going to dive down the inside. He sends it down the inside, not quite all the way up alongside, but just enough. He is going to get the job done. Kurt Stenberg relegated down to 3rd place, although he is not going away. He is staying side by side. He's going to be on the inside, gets a better run off of that corner down into turn 5. He's going to have the inside as Jake Maloney gets a little bit hairy. They're rubbing as they're going through that corner, but Jake Maloney's staying alongside. He's going to have the inside into the hairpin. This is exactly what we saw earlier on in the race as Kurt Stenberg gives it up, tries to cut up the inside. He's back up alongside, a little bit of a wiggle, and I think he's lost out that position. No, he's still there. Oh my goodness.
I'll take over there. Quite a long period of this lap has been spent with them side by side, and I thought that little wiggle out of the hairpin was Kurt Stenberg surrendering 2nd place to Jake Maloney. But another dive at the last corner. Oh, Kurt Stenberg, he had in the final sector the position back, but a very late move into the final corner. Jake Maloney makes the position back, but look at Kurt Stenberg almost bump drafting down the main straight. He's going to go back through at the first corner, but it'll be Jake Maloney trying to hang it around the outside, which certainly puts you in a good position strategically up into turn 5, and they've both nearly spun around. How did Kurt hold on to that? He loses crucial traction on the run down to turn 5, and now Jake Maloney is clear. What an absolute ding-dong battle.
Absolutely incredible racing between these two. Kurt just losing out on that battle, just got a little bit hairy as he tries to duck up the inside, locks up again, just doesn't seem to have the braking into that hairpin, just is tearing strips off his tyres at this point, and he's now lost about half a second to Jake Maloney ahead of him. That was he fought nobly, but just wasn't able to hold on to it. That is a damn shame. Although he is still on the back of him, he's pushing this car as hard as he possibly can, try to hold on to that 2nd place.
If ever you doubted that Kurt Stenberg doesn't want to win this championship, then I think you should go back and watch that lap again. He fought back. Every time you rode him out in that battle against Jake Maloney, he kept coming back, and you thought that he wasn't going to be able to make the move back. He did just that. But Jake Maloney, well, he's proved to us why he's won 6 races in this championship and why he currently leads the championship with moves like that. The move he pulled initially to try and get past Kurt Stenberg down into the hairpin, that's what he used to get past Thomas Mcmillan. Absolutely perfect racecraft. And save for a 1 or 2 little moments, so there was the one at turn 1 where I think if anything Jake Maloney corrected Kurt Stenberg a little bit as he was starting to spin round. It was very, very clean.
It was, yeah. There was a bit of rubbing, but that's about it. And it looks as if there is a fairly big pack, let's say, between Colin Warwick and Zach Baker, currently squabbling over 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th places. Colin Warwick up 1 place, Brody Steen up 2, Corey Preston up 3, still in that 6th place. So very good showing there for the JMSR driver. And Zach Baker trying to recover from his poor start. Currently in 7th. Oh, as he hangs the back out. But he's going to get a run down into the first corner, I think, right behind Corey Preston. They are very close together on track.
Is my Uber Eats here? Because I keep hearing ding dong, ding dong. It's an absolute stellar battle going on right here. Colin Warwick, though, I think starting to try and make his way clear of the battle going on behind him. Brody Steen, perhaps the cork in the bottle just a little bit Incidentally, we've had another retirement from this race, David Nenadic, who was on a pretty good charge after a fairly poor qualifying session from him. He has retired in the last 5 laps, actually. Lap 8 he retired, so that happened quite a while ago. As you can imagine, we were thinking about other things at the time, so that means it'll only be one car bringing home the points for the Zach Baker Racing team, assuming Zach Baker continues to run where he is right now and potentially get a few more positions. So that means just the one Zach Baker Racing car remaining in this race. Race on Oz still with 2, but Sean Allen back in 12th place. What are we looking at? Oh, Thomas Mcmillan. Thomas Mcmillan has gone down a number of spots. What's happened there?
Yeah, we've got David Sanford in the chat just saying that Thomas didn't have any tyres at the start of the race. He accidentally used all of his tyre sets during practice and qualifying. So he's on very, very used tyres, which quite impressive that he managed to set the lap time he did in qualifying, put himself in that particular position. He's now down into 16th place as he's pulling into the pits. Oh, and hitting the wall on the pit entry. His car is on fire. No, it's not. It's just he's now in an Austin Powers situation trying to get it. There we go, as he's knocked the curb.
It's toit.
It's very toit. But that is a damn shame there for Thomas Mcmillan. Very good qualifying position. Gone begging, basically. Just wasn't able to take advantage of it. And meanwhile, at the front, Jake Maloney's built almost a 3-second gap. Sorry, a 3.5-second gap over Kurt Steinberg. So just Kurt Steinberg, the cork in the bottle in that occasion.
Yeah, Jake Maloney, can he make any inroads on Ethan Warren? That is the question in the lead currently at 2.7 seconds. But the battle that we want to see is going on right behind with Corey Preston looking like he wants to make a move on Brody Steen for 5th place. And that continues to rage on now. Just on the Thomas Mcmillan thing, that the drivers were told during the week that they would only have 4 new sets of the Dunlop Supersoft tyres to be used at any time during during each race, and that includes practice. So you can't use them all up in qualifying and practice, or else you will not have any left for the race. And it appears that's what has happened to Thomas Mcmillan.
It is a damn shame. Sorry, I was just sucking in some air through my teeth as you were saying that useful information, because Corey Preston is all over the bumper of Brody Steen here for 5th place. He's going to have an incredible run down the straight, but Brody Steen, of course, will have the slipstream behind Colin Warwick, who has a tiny lock up there into the last corner. These guys are line astern. This is a very tight little pack, about the only one left on track at this stage. Colin Warwick immediately going defensive, cutting across to the middle of the track, but no one's going to have a run on him. Look at the trail behind him, like a snail trail, as they all chase after him across the straight.
Oh, another late move there! No! Brody Steen has been punted unceremoniously out of 5th place by Corey Preston and Zach Baker. I was about to say, is this deja vu? Because last round in Winton, he was sat behind Kurt Steinberg and Brody Steen, waiting for them to crash into each other and pick up the scraps. Well, pick up the scraps he has. He has moved up into 5th place with that very controversial incident occurring. How did you read that?
That seemed entirely like Corey Preston just completely not reading the breaking point for the cars ahead of him. I think you've gone well and truly further back than you needed to there in that replay. But I think he just completely missed his breaking point and he was sort of half, wasn't sure whether to go for the overtake down the inside, and he ended up sort of half crossed over. There you go. You see, just slams into the back of Brody Steen. I think that was their normal breaking point that Brody Steen was braking at. Just Corey Preston was not in on the memo.
So roughly how much between 99 and 100% do you call that Corey Preston's fault?
Oh my God, Zach Baker threw on Colin Warwick, who's outbroke himself into the first corner. This is going, but Zach Baker's off the track. He's managed to hold on to it. Oh my goodness. Colin Warwick all over the place. As he's trying to now get up the inside of Zach Baker. Does down turn 5. They have a little bit of a touch. Zach Baker, though, up the inside again. He's going to have the position done again, back into the hairpin. No, Colin Warwick down the inside. I don't know what to think at the moment. Zach Baker holds onto it out around the outside. What is happening, Steve?
Much better traction on the outside line, it would appear, out of the hairpin, and that was enough to allow Zach Baker back through. We didn't catch it. We didn't really have enough time to catch the end of that replay because the effects of it were still being felt throughout the field. We've got some sort of battle going on. Nigel Marneef now catching up to Corey Preston after that disastrous incident we saw earlier. And, well, Zach Baker, it was a bit of a nervous lap from him, but he's managed to get up ahead of Colin Warwick by virtue of Colin Warwick making a mistake. So Zach Baker, he's very, very consistent in this race, save for the lockup that we just saw and a few moments on the previous lap. But if he can keep it going, he's on for a very, very good result tonight.
Yeah, I was. You said a couple of laps ago that Colin Warwick was trying to stretch his advantage, but he's just sort of been reeled in by this mob throughout those couple of laps. I think he might have done a similar thing to Thomas Mcmillan, maybe taken a little bit too much life out of his tyres, because he just seems to be a little bit all over the place. As Brodie Steen cuts up the inside at the hairpin, Colin Warwick out-braking himself, but Colin Warwick with a better run off the hairpin into turn 7 takes that position back. So Corey Preston behind them having a watching brief, hoping that Brodie Steen's going to do what Corey Preston did to Brodie Steen to Colin Warwick.
Yeah, it's pretty clear from what we've seen in the last few minutes that the outside line out of the hairpin seems to have the better traction, and that certainly worked for Colin Warwick on the previous lap. He must have learned that from Zach Baker driving away from him on the previous lap, but he's now coming under immense pressure once more from Brodie Steen, who's got an awfully good run down the hairpin, but down the straight, I should say. Hairpin is the exact opposite of a straight. Brodie Steen trying to drive around the outside now of Colin Warwick, and Corey Preston is buying into this behind them. Brodie Steen has managed to stay ahead, and he'll be clear down into turn 5. Look how much Zach Baker's caught up. Oh, and now that was a late reactionary move there, perhaps from Colin Warwick. Corey Preston went to dive down the inside, and a day late and a dollar short, I believe is the phrase from Colin Warwick.
Yeah, that seemed like a very late defensive move there, but we'll have to watch the replay here. Looks as if he just sees him coming and then tries to move across to cover it off. There was already overlap between their two cars. So Corey Preston, the big loser out of that, has lost the position to Nigel Marneef and is currently in 8th. Whoa. He is all over the back of him, and Colin Warwick may be trying to, as Matt Lepoidovan gets a drive-through penalty, presumably for speeding in the pit lane or maybe track cuts. It looks as if Colin Warwick was trying to work his way back to redress that position to Corey Preston. I just don't understand how he's lost so much pace, Stairs.
Well, maybe he's struggling with tyres as well. It could be a factor. It may well be the talking point of the night. We're very, very close to the end of this race now.
Jesus.
As they're all going side by side through the first corner. Sorry, that's not the first corner. Yes, it is. I was right the first time. So Colin Warwick stays ahead for the time being of Nigel Marneef, who's having an excellent run as it stands, and a bit of a distractionary tactic there for Nigel Marneef, looking down the inside. I don't think that would have been particularly effective. And look at this, Will Devonish down the inside of Corey Preston. Where did that come from? He wasn't even in the picture. They nearly spin each other, unbelievably. But Corey Preston has the inside line, and that has always been the best line out of that corner. So, gracious me, this is all closing up. Adam Zeitinger behind, Sean Allen catching up. Look at this train. Let's just quickly have a bit of a word about our race leaders. Ethan Warren has a 2-second advantage over Jake Maloney. Jake's been just gradually eating into that over the past few laps, but he's just going to run out of time. It's now under 2 seconds for the first time since Jake got past Kurt Steinberg quite a number of laps ago. But Ethan Warren, it's been a great job from him so far, and we'll rejoin this battle for the 6th place, which is now being held by Nigel Marneef, who's got through on Colin Warwick.
He has indeed. I think Colin Warwick's going to want to try to come back at him sometime during this lap. Nigel just managed to get that job done into the first corner. My goodness, these guys are close on track. Barely a car's width between them all. Colin Warwick right on the back of Nigel Marneef as we head back to the front of the field. Ethan Warren crossing the line with to take the checkered flag. Jake Maloney in 2nd place, and Kurt Steinberg a distant 3rd in the end. Just didn't have the pace to live with Jake Maloney. Zach Baker rounding the final corner about 5 laps ago. He was looking at about 6th or 7th place. And he's found himself up in 4th place, so very well done him. Brodie Steen, after a bit of a punt, has found himself back up into 5th place. Bit of a drag race down the start-finish straight, but I don't think any positions are going to change, and indeed they don't, not enough time. So We have Nigel Marneef eventually being the beneficiary of that sixth position. Colin Warwick manages to hold on to 7th ahead of Corey Preston, Will Devenish, and Adam Zeitzinger rounds out our top 10.
Wow, that was something, wasn't it, Madbird? It was a strange old race, actually. It was kind of like the cork in the bottle that didn't quite get completely removed, and so the drops escaped from the champagne bottle one drop at a time, and we saw actually how spread out they were. Once Jake Maloney got past Kurt Steinberg, there was a fair old gap between Jake and Kurt. Zach Baker got past Colin Warwick, and so too Zach Baker and Brodie Steen, and they're all quite spread out, but then Nigel Marneef, who got past Colin in the end, Corey Preston, Will Devenish, Adam Zeitzinger, and Sean Allen were all in a space of about 2 or 3 seconds of one another.
Absolutely, that was what kept us entertaining the second half of that race. Incredible battle there for the midfield. Hope that continues on into the main race. And just a little bit unfortunate there for Brodie Steen and Corey Preston, although I don't know if it'll actually be looked at, since in the end Brodie Steen ended up 3 positions ahead of Corey Preston. So really Corey didn't hurt anyone but himself with that particular accident. We did miss at some stage during the race that Thomas Mcmillan actually DNF'd. So
No, we got that.
did we actually?
Yeah.
Did we mention that?
He ran out of tyres.
Yeah, he was still running at that stage though.
But he came into the pits, so we assumed
Yep.
he would have retired shortly after that.
Oh, you did. I didn't assume. I assume nothing because, of course, assumptions make an ass of you and me, particularly you. So,
Ass.
so unfortunate.
Ass you.
So unfortunate there for Thomas Mcmillan. As we head into qualifying for the second race, Stairs, and goodness me, if it's half as exciting as that one, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, if your hat was spinning around, you better hurry up and catch it, because it's going to be an absolutely ding-dong qualifying. Ding-dong, incidentally, is the word of the day. It's going to be a ding-dong qualifying session with just 5 minutes, and thank goodness for Thomas McMillan's sake, 4 new fresh sets of tyres in order to set the fastest lap that they possibly can in order to get themselves into that top 10 shootout. And that is going to be a very, very, very interesting session in prospect, and potentially one that advantages those who participated in the non-championship round at the Perth 197.5 2 weeks ago, because they had a shootout, and save for the shootout in the first round at Adelaide, that was the last time that we had a shootout. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of that, we'll bring you all of the action from qualifying for race 2. Don't go anywhere.
Our live coverage of the Automobilista Supercars Championship will be back shortly. For more information about the Automobilista Supercars Championship, including race results and official championship points, don't forget to visit the Automobilista Supercars Facebook and Instagram pages for all the latest news and results. To enhance your watching experience, you can follow all of the live timing for each race at rsmclanau.liveraces.com.
Stairs here. I just wanted to take a quick moment during this broadcast to talk about a young racing driver named Ryan Howe. I was lucky enough to commentate on Ryan's first win in the Victorian State Series at Sandown last year, and also a month later when he clinched the state title in dramatic circumstances at Phillip Island. This was my first time commentating on a real-world racing series, and Ryan was the first driver I got to meet. Only 17 years old at the time, he spoke with a wisdom beyond his years, was incredibly generous with his time, and even let me sit in his race-winning Audi R8 LMS. Fast forward to Perth earlier this month. Ryan was now racing in the Australian GT Championship, supporting the V8s at the Perth Super Night, and in race 1 of the weekend, nabbed his first outright. Welcome back. Apologies for cutting that break short, but we believe they've gone into qualifying a bit earlier than we were expecting, and it's a 10-minute session as opposed to a 5-minute session, which we believed it was in the schedule. So anyway, qualifying starts a bit earlier than we were expecting it to, and that means that the drivers have a little bit more time to try and set a time in the fastest 10 to get into this qualifying shootout.
You caught me as I was having a sip of beer. So the first runner out on track, by the looks of it, is Kurt Steinberg. He is wanting to try to make amends for that first race.
Go back into the pits.
Thanks very much for that, Kurt. Appreciate your work, mate. Nigel Marneef then becomes the first man to set a lap time, and indeed he doesn't. That was just his out lap. Who's the first one on track with a actual lap? Hard to tell. Sean Allen, I reckon you are dead right there, friend. Sean Allen, the first man coming around the final corner.
David Nenadich. 106 flat.
106 flat there for David Nenadich. 107.3 for Cam Rutledge, and Sean Allen goes fastest with a 105.3. So very good start there for the Race on Oz racing driver. Brody Steen also with a 105.7. Colin Warwick setting the timing screens alight. We just got messages from him advising that he was on his qualifying brake duct setting, so he couldn't get his brakes below 500 degrees Celsius, which is an incredible amount of temperature there, Stairs.
And the one thing I don't want near the cork in my champagne bottle is 500-degree brakes. That would certainly do a number on the bottle, and would make the champagne taste just terrible.
Would probably make it taste a tiny bit like that beautiful strawberry wine that we had, quite tart, and you're looking at me in a way that I'm not sure whether you're offended or not, or if I should be feeling something else, possibly in my nether regions. Nigel Marneef currently second fastest on track with a 105 dead. Ethan Warren, however, is the one sitting at the top of the timing screen so far, 104.5. So very good times there and Colin Warwick in second, 104.9.
Immediately surpassed by Thomas McMillan in second place. 3/10 off Ethan Warren. Let's hope not, because he'll have to get through the shootout as well, presuming he makes it up into the top 10. But Ethan Warren is going faster again, half a tenth faster than the 104.5 that he set his fastest lap on. There's a bit of traffic though for Ethan's just had a crash. I was looking at the other screen and I look back and Ethan Warren has come a cropper. Let's catch a replay coming up to the final corner. Still coming up to the final corner. And here he is at the final corner. Lit up the rears. The back went round and smashed into the wall on the inside. So what could have been for Ethan Warren?
And what could be for Jake Maloney, who is set a purple sector through the second sector. Currently fifth fastest, but he's about to cross the line with a 104.4. Goes first fastest in pole position, 0.03 of a second ahead of Ethan Warren.
Of course, all provisional, because this is merely just to get into the top 10, and then if they get into the top 10, then their times get completely deleted, and they have to start from scratch. And Jake Maloney was one of quite a few drivers last non-championship race when we had a shootout to bin their lap, and I wonder if they will have learned from that particular experience.
One would hope so. We do one-lap shootouts ourselves in Apex Rear Wing, or at least we have for the last couple of seasons, and I can tell you there's nothing more frustrating than having some incredible pace during practice and then binning your single chance to set a good qualifying time and finding yourself at the back of the grid. So the results last time out at the Perth shootout suggest that Thomas McMillan is good on a single lap when the pressure is on. He took pole position last time out. Kurt Steinberg in second, Zach Baker in third. So a few of our quick runners got some shootout nous, let's say. Jake Maloney has dived into the pits as we are watching Will Devonish down in 10th place. So currently the last man on track who has got a option to go through to the shootout. But that, of course, is provisional. We do have 3 minutes left in this session, which is ample time for someone to hop up and knock him out of that top 10. Maybe his teammate Ozrob down in 14th place.
Currently, of the guys who are in the top 10, 7 of them are in the pit lane. So I wonder if they're comfortable or not, because there's a lot of guys behind them who are not in the pit lane trying to improve on their lap time. And Will Devonish trying to cement his place in the top 10. What can he do as he comes across the line? Will he improve on his current time of a 1 minute 5.575? He indeed does not improve and loses 3/10 on himself.
That's better than losing 3/10 on someone else, I suppose, but he was 1.5 seconds behind pole position man Jake Maloney, so that is a damn shame. Zach Baker down in 13th place. I'd expect him to be higher up. I expect him to probably set a decent lap time this time around. He was, as we said, third in the shootout last time out at the Perth Street Circuit for the non-championship round, and he is 3/10 up on his current PB through the first sector, and he's got traffic ahead of him, so he's going to want to try to negotiate that traffic, which I believe is hard to tell. That is Aiden Schultz. Yeah, which I believe he is. I don't think he was in the first race. He's come along for the main run, which is nice of him. He'd be nice.
I tell you, Zach Baker probably wouldn't want him to be there.
I was about to say it'd be nice. It'd be nice for Zach Baker's sake if he got the hell out of the way. Although he will give Zach Baker a nice little slipstream down the start-finish straight, which is a little bit of a help, but this time is not looking incredible for Zach Baker. 8th place, so into the top 10 with 1.5 minutes to go.
And knocks David Nedidich out of the top 10. Will Devonish has also been knocked out of the top 10, so that's not good for the Zach Baker guys, knocking each other out. That's like Charles Leclerc getting knocked out of Q3 by Sebastian Vettel. Q1, I think it was, at the Monaco Grand Prix last month, as one of the Zach Baker cars goes off. It is not Zach Baker, it's David Nedidich. So Zach Baker trying again, and I believe he's up on this particular lap.
Yeah, looks like faster in the second sector than he was first sector, than he was previously. Coming up to the second sector line here, it is such a short lap. They come up so quickly, and he is down on his PB, so not going to improve. He will have another shot for it if he is fueled and his tyres have the life in them. Who else have we got out on track that's looking for a 10th top 10 berth? Scott Nolan only 16th, not good enough. Will Devonish up into 11th. So inching closer, but just not enough speed.
Will Devonish is trying again. He's been knocked down to 11th place, as we detailed earlier on. And just 14 seconds left, so if you're not on a lap or about to start one, then you might be a little bit worried if you're in that cutoff zone. Corey Preston, Sean Allen, those are two drivers who are in the cutoff zone. In fact, Sean Allen is in the pits, so he might be a little bit nervous where he's sat right now. And Will Devonish goes off the track, so that's put paid to his charge. David Nedidich, what can he do as he locks up down into the hairpin? Tries to get some traction out. Let's see what the second split time says for David Nedidich. Is it going to be fast enough to propel him further up the grid than where he is? He had a horrible qualifying for race 1, and it looks like the same thing for him here, although not quite as far down as he was for race 1. Who else? Adam Zeiting is in the pit, so too Jinx, Osrob, Scott Nolan, Termo down there in 17th place, doesn't improve. Aiden Schultz in 18th, Jay Borg. So it looks like you might be safe, actually, if your name is Sean Allen or Corey Preston, because no one behind them is improving.
Everyone has finished or gone to the pits by the looks of it. No one has managed to set a time or get across the line in time to set another time that is going to get them anywhere close to that top 10. So our top 10 shootout will be Jake Maloney, Ethan Warren, Colin Warwick, Thomas Mcmillan, Zach Baker, Kurt Stenberg, Nigel Marneef, Brody Steen, Sean Allen, and Corey Preston. Will Devonish and David Nedidich, the unfortunate, just missing out there in 11th and 12th. But I'm excited. There's nothing like the pressure of a one-shot qualifying to bring out the accidents in people. Of course, not that we're hoping for accidents, but of course, it makes everything a little bit more exciting, a little bit more pressure on everybody involved. We've got 30 minutes. We're not going to need it. The lap's about 1 minute and a couple of seconds around here, so I don't expect that we'll be spending all 30 minutes here in the one-shot shootout. And I believe if we're starting from 10th, first man out is going to be Corey Preston, who was in 10th place.
So a calm falls upon this Hidden Valley Raceway circuit as we await the top 10 shootout. So Corey Preston, by the skin of his teeth, getting into that top 10 shootout, and here he comes out into the pit lane. All eyes turn towards his JMSR Ford FGX Falcon. And what can he do? He now has to sit at the end of the pit lane and await further instruction. He'll be told via the in-game chat when it is okay to go, as will all the other drivers in the top 10 shootout. And it'll be nerve-wracking moments for Corey Preston. He was one of the drivers who did the top 10 shootout at the Perth 197.5 last round. It's interesting, quite a few of the drivers who've made it to the top 10 are the same who made it in the top 10 last time, albeit we had less drivers vying for it. So very, very interesting point that. So I guess it's just one of those things where if you've done it before, it makes it a little bit easier to do it again.
You just got to sort of remain calm, Stairs, and you be confident in yourself that you've done this, you've done this 50, 60 times in practice, and of course these guys have done it for a whole 21-lap race. You gotta just sort of put out of your mind that it's a it's your one-lap shot to set a decent time for qualifying. And as he drives past the burnout marks there left by someone during the previous qualifying, and just try to set that hot lap that you can do.
Corey Preston, incidentally, was one of the drivers who made a mistake in the top 10 shootout in the last round, the non-championship round in Perth. So I wonder if he'll be going hell for leather like he did that time, or whether he'll just be trying to nail down a time. We do a lot of the top 10 shootouts in the Apex Rear Wing, which you'll incidentally be part of in tomorrow's first round at Brno in the DRM Championship, and that's something that you have quite a bit of experience with. So I wonder, what strategy would you apply to this top 10 shootout, Madbird? Would you be aiming to just get a lap down knowing that you've still got 9 guys to come, and a few of them may well make a mistake on their lap?
Yeah, I definitely would be. I'd be leaving something on the table. I would, because you got to think, if you go hell for leather and you flip it or you spin it at a corner, then that's your as Corey Preston very deep at the hairpin. Might not cost him too much time. Decent exit. Yeah, so it's going to probably even itself out. But I would definitely be leaving something on the table. I wouldn't be going flat out, because if you make a mistake, then that's your lot. So you gotta. It's difficult. You gotta find a balance between pushing hard enough to set a decent time while also not overdriving the car. It's quite tricky to describe. So I'm really glad that you've given me the opportunity to fumble like this.
Just writing down the times, and a 105.5 is the time for Corey Preston. Not too shabby, didn't make a mistake, and Corey Preston lays down a marker for all those to follow. And Sean Allen is the next man on track for Race on Oz. And what can he do in this race? He was a little bit further back in race 1 than we're used to seeing him. He's the man who's won 2 races in this championship, in what has been a very, very good championship for his Race on Oz team with Brody Steen and himself. He's going to come across the line. It was a pretty good exit, fairly clean exit out of the final corner from what I could see. So a long, long way down this straight. The final corner is so important because of that long straight, and it's a very, very tidy first corner for Sean Allen. Traction looks fantastic as he comes out of turn 1. Didn't wiggle it. I wonder if he's leaving something on the table as well. Down to turn 5, and a bit of a slide going in there, I think. The front just didn't want to bite, but he's 2/10 up. 22.3 on Corey Preston. That's 0.3 of a second quicker. Sean Allen, well, I think that's looking pretty good for him so far.
Beautiful, beautiful run through the hairpin as well. I think his run through the first corner was fantastic. Although, as I say that, he's almost 0.3 down now on the first place currently provisional man of Corey Preston. So, not sure where he's lost that time, Stairs. Jesus.
Yeah, and remember we saw a very strange line from Corey Preston at the hairpin, so maybe that worked for him, squaring off the corner and getting a sharp exit.
Maybe so. He's going to cross the line, Sean Allen, in second place, almost 0.8, the thicker part of 0.8 behind Corey Preston. So could be onto something there. That sort of wider line through the hairpin, getting a much better run out of it, might be the go. As we've got Brody Steen, the other Race on Oz Racing car, number 13, lucky number 13, coming around the last corner, catapulting himself down this long straight. As you say, so important. You gotta get a decent run off of it to carry speed, or you lose time all the way down this straight. It looks like he got a pretty decent run down into the first corner. His teammate had a very tidy line through the first corner. See if he manages to match it. Goes a little bit wide, manages to hold on to it. I think that was still pretty okay. He uses a little bit of track on the outside, but not too much. Doesn't unsettle the car on the curb as he catapults himself down towards turn 5.
Certainly unsettles the car after that, though. Coming over the crest, was trying to get away from him. He's 22.5 in the first sector. He's up by 700ths of a second on the fastest lap of this qualifying session, which was set by Corey Preston. But we know Sean Allen went better in the first sector. But it all fell away in the last two sectors. Brody Steen, well, we know you can take multiple lines through a few of these corners, and we've seen that at turn 1. We've seen that at the hairpin. He's up by a 10th now, 44.8. And that is much better than his teammate Sean Allen. Can he get a clean final corner? He didn't actually use all of the track. He could have used a little bit more, so I wonder if he's left a little something on the table coming onto the straight, just trying to get a clean lap. And Brody Steen goes to the top by 0.5 of a second over Corey Preston.
Excellent work there. Yeah, he took a very, very tight line through the hairpin. Probably the completely, textbook correct line through the hairpin, and it didn't seem to cost him the way that it did his teammate. We've got Nigel Marneef here for Team Talent, number 690, in the Nismo Racing Ultima, catapulting himself down towards the first turn. I've said catapulted 3 times now in the last 3 sentences.
Time for a new word.
It is trebucheting himself into this first corner. Nice and tidy, sticks close to the inside and accelerates on the outside. Good line, uses a little bit of the outside, not too much, and squirts himself down towards the towards turn 5. Good braking, turns in. He's 0.2 down though. I don't know where you lose that amount of time, Stairs. This is such a short lap.
Yeah, I thought he was a bit wide at turn 1 and maybe just didn't quite get onto the throttle early enough. It looked clean enough, and he's probably left a little bit of time on the table out of the hairpin. We know that the outside line is pretty gripped up on the exit of the hairpin. We saw that in the race, but he's managed to claw back some time, so he makes a liar of me almost immediately. 44.876 for Nigel Marneef. It all comes down to this final sector. Does he have enough to unseat the provisional pole sitter Brody Steen? He uses a little bit more of the racetrack on the final corner than Brody Steen does, so let's see if that pays him a dividend down this straight. And he is at the top by 0.1 of a second. Nigel Marneef takes provisional pole away from Brody Steen.
Absolutely, he does. And we now have Kurt Steinberg, championship protagonist, cotagonist. What's the term for two men that you do?
I like cotagonist.
Cotagonist, because I don't really like. I'm not rooting for either of them particularly. I'm rooting for a good fight. So let's call them cotagonists. Kurt Steinberg. Hashtag cotagonist Kurt Steinberg. Kurt-tagonist Steinberg down into turn 1. As we've said, he built this track. He should definitely know his way around.
Did he build it on rock and roll?
He built this track. On Hidden Valley. Used a lot of the outside there at the exit of turn 1. Not sure if that was faster or not. He did dip into the grass through the first sector. He is 0.3 up, or the better part thereof, on the fastest man, Nigel Marneef. Though Nigel Marneef was not very quick through the first sector, as we saw, so that could be a little bit misleading as he squirts himself out of the hairpin. Get to see how he's done through the second sector. This is where some big gains can be made with your line out of the hairpin. He is up by just over 0.3, so he has built that margin very slightly, looking like he's going to be pole man, assuming he doesn't mess up this final turn. Good line, uses the outside of the track,
perfect.
Just grazes the wall. That is the perfect line, as he's almost 2 tires over the white line there, and across the line with almost 0.4 of a second in the lead over Nigel Marneef, Kurt Steinberg. So remains to be seen whether his other cotagonist, Jake Maloney, can find his way up there.
Turning our attention now to the sole Zach Baker racing car in this top 10 shootout, driven by Zach Baker. So he is the 6th man to set a lap time. It's actually surprising that we saw Kurt Steinberg as low down as that, but he could potentially start much higher than he's qualified and to get into the top 10 shootout. Of course, once you get into the shootout, doesn't matter. You're in the top 10. Doesn't matter if what you do. Once you do that, then all you have to do is set a fast lap in the shootout. Now, Zach Baker is currently going about doing that. Looked pretty good to me through the first corner. Headlights ablaze. There's no one going to be in front of him. That's one of the only times you're going to get a clear track, and he's ahead of where Kurt Steinberg was at the same point on the previous lap by a small amount, near enough 200ths of a second for Zach Baker. And using all the track on the exit, looks pretty clean from what I can see so far, and may well be a very, very good lap for Zach Baker coming up to the second sector split. And again, the exact same margin that he had at the first split. Zach Baker and Kurt Steinberg do an identical time to the thousandths of a second in the middle split. So that's all going to come down to this final split. It looked almost identical out of the final corner that Kurt Steinberg did. So let's see what the time is across the line. He's lost it all in the final sector. It was not much though, half a tenth in it, and Zach Baker is second.
Absolutely, he didn't even lose a whole tenth in that amount of time. It was about 600ths of a second, the difference in the end between the second sector and his lap time. We've got Thomas Mcmillan here for Mega Black Racing. Used up all his tyres in the first race, and hopefully has some tyres left over. This is going to be a longer race, so I hope he's not using his last set here during the one shot as he crosses the line to start his hot lap in that Holden Commodore. So into the first corner using all the track on the outside. Looks like he's gone deep. No, it's okay. It looks as if he's pulled it up. That was he's got some incredible brakes on that car. That looked like it was going to go very deep indeed, but he managed to pull it up. Remains to be seen if that's made an effect on his time.
Carried more speed into there than Pablo Escobar.
Looks as if it's paid dividends as well. Almost 2/10 up on Kurt Steinberg's time through the first sector. Tidy line through the hairpin. Probably a little bit tight on the exit. Could have used a little bit more track, but don't think that'll have cost him too much time as he sweeps down towards the second sector split. He is still up by just over 2/10 of a second, so he's gained a little bit through that middle sector as he's coming down here towards the last corner. This is where it all counts. He's got to get a decent run through it. Looks like a good run. Beautiful. Beautiful indeed. Just a little bit more towards the center of the track than the last two runners have been, but I don't think it's going to cost him anything as he goes into first. Almost 3/10 of a second. Excellent lap there from Thomas Mcmillan.
104.7, that's going to be hard to beat. Thomas Mcmillan, we've seen faster than that in the other qualifying sessions, but it's very, very difficult to do this over one lap. Colin Warwick is going to have a go at it, but what can he do? He was the man who had his qualifying brake ducts set for the race and was dealing with brake temperatures well over 500 degrees for the predominant majority of that race, which went some way to explaining why his race pace wasn't quite what we're used to seeing from him. What can he do coming up to the first sector? It's looked pretty clean from what I've seen of it so far. Coming up 1/10 of a second. That's going to be hard to claw back on this fairly short racetrack. So Thomas Mcmillan sitting pretty at the moment. Kurt Steinberg, though, will be worried about being split by Colin Warwick. Thomas Mcmillan is currently on a lap that was about 2/10 of a second faster than what Kurt did to the first sector. It hasn't looked particularly theatrical from Colin Warwick. He was one of the guys who had a mistake in the Perth Super Sprint. Sorry, not the Super Sprint, the Perth 197.5 in the shootout for that one. But he hasn't made any such mistakes. It's been a very clean shootout from everyone so far. Not a single mistake there, but he drops down into fourth at the death, so maybe a little bit too circumspect in the final sector for Colin Warwick, and he pays for it.
He does indeed. Ethan Warren now the race winner by a comfortable margin in race one. Down in second place, was pipped by Jake Maloney during the full qualifying session. Doesn't matter though. It all comes down to this. So will he have outright one lap pace over Jake Maloney, and will he leave anything on the table? I'm guessing not, knowing the Warrens. They tend to not be very circumspect, to use a word that you just used because it happens to be in my head at this moment in time. With their racing, they go balls to the wall as much as humanly possible down towards the first sector. He is up by the barest of margins, eight hundredths, thousandths even of a second ahead of Thomas Mcmillan's time. Into the hairpin he goes. Tidy line, opens up the throttle on the exit. Little bit messy there on the exit, but with that tighter margin in the first sector, I think he might have lost out here. He hasn't. He's built his margin up to half a tenth. 48 hundredths of a second there for Ethan Warren. 48 thousandths. Do apologise. Into the last corner he goes. Very, takes all the track he possibly can and a tiny bit of grass to go with it. Down towards the line. Almost scraping that wall as he dives up into the first place by 0.2 of a second. All gained in that last sector. Goodness me.
Well, that is going to be hard to beat. That was about as good as any lap he's put together all throughout this qualifying session as we try and find Jake Maloney. Where is Jake Maloney? Who's supposed to be about to start his lap. Is he on the track?
He's not in the server.
Oh, he's not in the server. So he's supposed to be in this Ten Shootout, but he's dropped out of the server. So Ethan Warren, by virtue of that, will be your pole sitter. Well, what an anticlimax to this top 10 shootout. We were certainly looking forward to seeing what Jake Maloney could do, but Ethan Warren blitzed Thomas Mcmillan's time, and the only man I think probably in the server capable of beating that time in a shootout isn't in the server.
That's certainly an impediment to doing a decent lap time. Not sure what happened there, if he's had a connection issue or has had to leave, something like that. He is not in the server anywhere I can see. He has been replaced by RSM Latino, who I don't believe was here before. But that is not to throw shade on RSM Latino, but that is a bad trade for us to have made. Jake Maloney, I was very much looking forward to seeing how he did. Hope we get to find out what happened to him. Hopefully all is well, obviously. But as it stands, Ethan Warren is our pole position holder for the race. And I imagine that Will Devonish will be a tiny bit annoyed, since he is now promoted up into 10th place, which if that had happened during the qualifying session, then he would have had to go in this shootout. But as it was, he is relegated down into 10th place, starting from the back of the top 10. Thomas Mcmillan, though, second place, hopefully with some tyres this time around. And Kurt Steinberg in third. What can he do with his protagonist, Jake Maloney, apparently not in the server, Stairs?
Well, things coming in 3 for Kurt Steinberg. He qualified in third for race 1 and finished third, and now qualified again in third. So I wonder if he's looking forward to finishing third in the second race of the night. I suspect he will want to be doing one or two better than that, but certainly the fact that Jake Maloney is potentially starting out of 10th place, if he makes it to race 2, that'll certainly have an effect.
To put it lightly, that will have an effect. Although we did see at the Perth Super Night that Jake Maloney started from the back of the grid and found his way onto the podium. So the man is certainly not to be underestimated. Should he find his way into the server, it looks as if they might possibly just be waiting to see if he re-emerges, as we haven't moved on to the next session as of yet. Still 12 minutes here in the session to go. But no sign of the championship protagonist as of yet, which I'm sure Kurt Steinberg is probably simultaneously crossing his fingers that he doesn't show up, but also, sort of hoping. You don't want to retake the championship lead based off of something like that. And I imagine that it would be retaking the championship lead for Kurt if Jake Maloney does not re-emerge, as they were quite close during the first race. And the margin between them is really not that much in the championship. So Kurt Steinberg would be looking at retaking that lead, and it would be looking like another DNS or DNF for Jake Maloney, who, apart from his wins, those have pretty much been his only results, which is probably not a record that you particularly want to have. 10.5 minutes remaining in the session. Not sure how much longer we're going to let this roll on for, unless possibly the admins know something we don't and know that Jake Maloney is in the offing, which is an odd thing to say about a person, but regardless, I have said it. Well, we've got a little bit of time here. Just gonna give a quick plug. Make sure you come along youtube.com/c/Apex Rear Wing. Tomorrow night around this time, we will be in the midst of the first round of our Deutsch Rennsportmeisterschaft, or DRM 70s DRM series. So make sure you come along to see us screaming as we're trying to wrangle cars with 1,000 horsepower, but 4 doors.
Thank you for that, and I can't wait to call the action for the DRM Championship starting tomorrow night on the Apex Rear Wing channel. While you were doing that, I've just been digging through the rulebook to try and see if I can find any precedent for this, because as we know, during normal qualifying sessions, if any driver were to drop out of the server midway through the qualifying, they will not be allowed to rejoin. Now, I was trying to see if that applied to the shootout procedure, because of course it is a different type of qualifying session. No such rule specifically about that, but there is a line in the rules that says that if a driver does not start his outlap within a reasonable time, he'll be unable to take part in the shootout. Now, for me, I feel like a reasonable time has elapsed for Jake Maloney. The fact that he's not in the session it means that he probably won't be able to, and we've just got confirmation through from admins. They're sorting out the grid before the warm-ups, so that is confirmation now that Jake Maloney has not taken part in this qualifying session and will not. And a shout out to Frag11 in the live chat, who says, Apex Rear Wing, an old friend of Madbird and myself, and a pleasure to have you watching the broadcast, and hope all is well in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Fraggles, hello, my friend. Come back and race with us sometime. We do miss you. Looks as if we're just sorting out the grid, so we should be underway in the not too distant future. This might be a good opportunity for a quick little pit stop, Stairs.
Absolutely. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, and all the action from race 2 is just around the corner.
Our live coverage of the Automobilistas Supercars Championship will be back shortly. For more information about the Automobilistas Supercars Championship, including race results and official championship points, don't forget to visit the Automobilistas Supercars Facebook and Instagram pages for all the latest news and results. To enhance your watching experience, you can follow all of the live timing for each race at rsmclanau.liveraces.com.
Stairs here. I just wanted to take a quick moment during this broadcast to talk about a young racing driver named Ryan Howe. I was lucky enough to commentate on Ryan's first win in the Victorian State Series at Sandown last year, and also a month later when he clinched the state title in dramatic circumstances at Phillip Island. This was my first time commentating on a real-world racing series, and Ryan was the first driver I got to meet. Only 17 years old at the time, he spoke with a wisdom beyond his years, was incredibly generous with his time, and even let me sit in his race-winning Audi R8 LMS. Fast forward to Perth earlier this month. Ryan was now racing in the Australian GT Championship, supporting the V8s at the Perth Super Night, and in race 1 of the weekend, nabbed his first outright victory off Quinn Albert Park. Clearly an outstanding talent in the making. Unfortunately, while leading race 2 of the weekend, with just seconds remaining, a brake rotor failure on Ryan's R8 sent him off at high speed, ruining not just his chances for victory, but also potentially putting his career in motorsport in serious doubt. Within days of a GoFundMe page being set up, fans hoping to get him back on track and donated $4,000. But it's a far cry from the $50,000 Ryan and his father need to get the car back on track. So please, if you can, donate or share this with other motorsport fans so together we can get Ryan Howe back into the winner's circle. Links to the GoFundMe and Speed Cafe articles will be down in the description box below. Welcome back everyone to round 7 of the Automobilista Supercars Championship here at Darwin. We just had the top 9 shootout because Jake Maloney was unable to take part in the top 10 shootout for whatever reason. We don't know yet, but we can tell you he'll be starting from 10th for race 2.
You weren't here for it, Stairs, but I was here for the Perth Super Night round where he started from the back of the grid in 23rd or 24th place and managed to find himself on the 3rd step of the podium by the end of the race. So starting from 10th, I'm quite scared for what he's able to do. He didn't have the pace in the first race to pull that gap down on Ethan Warren, who managed to win by a couple of seconds. But across a longer race with some strategy thrown in, of course, they do need to make a pit stop. It might play into his hands a little bit. Kurt Steinberg would be hoping that that is not the case, as he has qualified in 3rd place and he is wanting to build a gap or retake even the championship lead over his co-tagonist Jake Maloney. Got Frag again in the chat saying, doing a good job, boys, love your work, love you too, man. Like I said, come back, we miss you. Termo hashtag next round Town Castle 200 9th July. What? Alright.
That is a reference, of course, to the graphic on screen that viewers would have seen just prior to me starting this sentence, that, that the next round of the Automobilista Supercars Championship, round 8, is actually the Newcastle 200 on the 9th of July, which you and I will be commentating on because we do have a version of the Newcastle circuit to run. So that'll be something that is very much to be desired, and we can't wait to see that racetrack. Will be the first time that I've commentated on that racetrack in Automobilista, as it was replaced last year in the Automobilista Australia Supercars Championship by another circuit.
And honestly, it'll be the first time I've laid eyes on it. Not being a supercars fan myself, I'm not particularly au fait with some of the Australian circuits that they do race around. Hidden Valley being an exception, as we say, we did commentate over it when they ran it in the Automobilista Australia series. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing this Newcastle in the flesh.
Well, as you said before, race 2 is a bit longer than race 1, and we have a pit stop, just a small matter of, in this race. Very, very wide pit window with the longest stint on a full tank of fuel around this track, around about 28 laps, which means we're expecting cars potentially to be able to pit from lap 7 and make it to the end. We'll probably see them split it in half, probably more likely than that, but it certainly opens a few doors for the strategical side of this race.
It does indeed. Lap 7 through 28 there was the pit window, so certainly a lot of options there for people. Do they want to start with a light car, or do they want to start with a heavy car and make sure they've got a light little fuel load and a short stop in the middle of the race? Regardless, we are starting our warm-up lap. You can hear the engines revving. They're all keen to go. Get moving and get warming on those tyres. Ethan Warren leads our grid off of the grid. That was a weird sentence, as he took the win in the first race after a little scuffle with Kurt Steinberg early on, but just fell away. Managed to take a fairly unopposed victory in the end. Will he be able to do that again? Thomas Mcmillan in 2nd place. In the first race, he used up all his tyres during practice and qualifying. Didn't have any tyres left for the race itself, and ended up DNFing. So he's going to hope that he has not done that this time around. Kurt Steinberg in 3rd place. Same place that he started the first race, and same place that he ended the first race. So he is going to want to try to break that little duck of threes that he's got going on and have a better result in theory. Zach Baker in 4th place. Colin Warwick in 5th after a very good tussle with that man ahead of him, Zach Baker, and that man behind him Nigel Marneef and Brody Steen in the first race. Corey Preston in 8th after a decent showing in the first race. Sean Allen, the other Race on Oz racer, in 9th place. Jake Maloney, after missing out on the shootout, starts from 10th. That is not where he is going to remain, though. That man is going to shoot up the order very quick, I imagine. Will Devonish missing out for the Wall Race Engineering on the shootout. Unfortunate for him. Looks like Jinx is out of position. We've got Adam Zeitinger in 12th place, Jinx in 13th, Ozrob, the other Race Engineering car, down in 14th, Scott Nolan in 15th, Termo, the promotee from Super 2, up in 16th place, as Aiden Schultz is taking all the track to try to warm his tyres up. Jay Borg and Matt Lepoidovan as the last man on track after an unfortunate first race, had a couple of drive-through penalties. Hopefully doesn't occur again this time around.
Love your work, Madbird. That was the grid for race 2. And we're about to get going for the race itself here in Darwin. Well, Ethan Warren with pole position. Can he take the Triple Crown? He's got pole position. He's got the race 1 win. Can he get the race 2 win? Small calm over Darwin, and the revs rise to get going in race 2. Great launch from the front two. Kurt Steinberg a little bit tardy off the line, and is he going to come under pressure coming down to the line? We've got cars going all over the place. Jake Maloney going all the way into the pit apron there to go around the outside. I wonder if that's allowed. Taking a lot of liberties there, going around the outside of how many cars, I don't know. Meanwhile, at the front, Ethan Warren, a car length clear of Thomas Mcmillan. Kurt Steinberg is held on to third, but he's a long way behind the front two. And is there a dive coming from Thomas Mcmillan? No, he stays in behind Ethan Warren. He didn't have enough of an opportunity. Look at Colin Warwick. He's up one spot behind him. They're fighting over 5th place. Corey Preston on the inside Zach Baker on the inside of Corey Preston. Jake Maloney has made it up 3 spots up into 7th place, and he's going to try and drive around the outside of Sean Allen. And that's rare, actually, to see someone make that move, stick around the outside of that corner.
Yeah, definitely. What a start there from Jake Maloney. I imagine that start will be looked at right out on the pit exit. He was as coming down into the first corner. He's right behind Zach Baker and Corey Preston, who are tussling over that 5th position. He's going to have an incredible turn of pace down this start-finish straight. He is under 2/10 and it is closing. He is going to go for the inside, I imagine. Although Zach Baker is also close to Corey Preston ahead. Oh, as he moves out a little bit of a tap. Jake Maloney with a very tight line in the end. And Zach Baker not too happy with that, I don't think. He's right behind him. And Sean Allen all over the back of him as well. So a little bit of a tap there from Zach Baker. Not sure if that was untoward from Jake Maloney or not. Looked like a late little duck out from Zach Baker. Corey Preston barely hangs on to it. Oh my goodness. And promotes Jake Maloney up into 5th place, already up 5 places from his start Stairs, and Kurt Stenberg, still in his 3rd place that he started in, will be looking in his rearview mirror thinking, how the fuck did that happen?
Pardon my co-commentator's French there, but goodness me, Jake Maloney, it's Christmas Eve and he's tearing the presents open way too early. Corey Preston just presented him with that one. A little bit of a moment out of turn 5, and Jake Maloney was through as quick as you like, up into 5th place. And the first 5 were pretty easy. The next 5 I don't anticipate will be quite as easy, but if anyone's got the pace to make their way up towards where Ethan Warren is, it is Jake Maloney. The gap as they came across the line to Colin Warwick was at 1.2 seconds, and I anticipate that he's going to close that down very quickly. The live timing screen lighting up with an awful lot of personal bests, which is really hardly any sort of surprise because it's the first flying lap of the race.
I just want to quickly draw attention to who I think was the unluckiest starter in that race, Nigel Marneef, currently down in 12th place, 6 positions down on his starting position. He had an incredible start and jumped the guys ahead of him, but just nowhere to go. The field all squeezed up ahead of him and he had to slam on the brakes and get out of it. Lost so many places off the start, so watch for him to be... Oh, sorry, interrupt myself, as Zach Baker had a very big moment there in the last sector, is desperately trying to defend around the last corner from Sean Allen, manages to hang on to it, although I don't know how good a run he's gotten off the corner in comparison to Sean Allen. Not a good start there from Zach Baker, down about 3 places, I believe, from his start-finish straight. Oh, from his starting position is what I meant to say. Sean Allen, barest of space, is not going to make it. He manages to pull it up just in time, and the other race on Oz. Oh, Zach Baker's around the other race, and big crash. Will Devonish is involved, and Zach Baker has gone around several times. Oh my goodness, that is catastrophic.
Well, it was an incredibly defensive line there from Zach Baker as he tried to stop Sean Allen from going through. The other race on Oz car, Brody Steen, got caught up there as well. Very, very unfortunate for, I think, Will Devonish, one of the War Race Engineering cars anyway, getting caught up in that and getting, I believe, a lot of damage. He's now down in 19th, Will Devonish, as Zach Baker recovered to the racetrack. And, well, he might need a wash because he's not covered himself with glory.
Absolutely. He has not covered himself in any kind of glory. Currently in 18th place, second only in last, in the sense of being last to Will Devonish, who, as you said, currently running last on track in 19th position. Ethan Warren at the front has managed to build a slight buffer over Thomas Mcmillan, about a second there to the Mega Black Racing car. Kurt Steinberg a further 2 seconds back, but Colin Warwick closing down on his fellow admin under 0.4 of a second. And Jake Maloney eager to get onto the back of Kurt Steinberg. He knows he has his measure, and he has gone down the inside of Colin Warwick and taken that 4th position. Thank you very much.
Well, Kurt Steinberg will be looking in his rear vision mirror right about now and thinking, what? Already? It's only 5 laps into the race. 35 laps in this race, so still 30 to go. As my high school mathematics 101 comes into effect. But gracious me, that has been a very, very quick rate of well, I don't know how to finish that sentence, but because Ethan Warren's just set the fastest lap, it's taking away the fastest lap that Jake Maloney took on the previous lap. He was the first man into the 104s and didn't really have an opportunity to better on this lap because he was busy making his way past Colin Warwick.
And he is now, as Kurt Steinberg oversteers out of turn 1, and he is now right on his bumper into turn 5. I reckon he might have a little bit of a go, and he does, down the inside of turn 5, but Kurt Steinberg holds onto it around the outside. He's going to have the inside into the hairpin, although we have seen, tries to cross up the inside, doesn't manage to get it done, but Kurt Steinberg outbrakes himself, locks up. Kurt Steinberg manages to hold onto it around the outside. Oh my goodness, what a couple of corners. He is running down through the last sector. Kurt Steinberg right on the ragged edge of the track.
These two are fighting over the championship right now. Jake Maloney leads the championship. Kurt Steinberg is trying to claw back points, but he wasn't equal to the task in race 1. He built this racetrack, Kurt Steinberg. Jake Maloney, though, is faster around this racetrack right now than Kurt Steinberg. Can he get past Kurt Steinberg before the end of this race? My money would have to be on him right now because he's going down the inside of turn 1. Kurt Steinberg sees him coming and he's taking the wider line around the outside. Seemingly enough grip there to hold on, and that gives him the inside down to turn 5 as they go side by side through this harem-scarum part of the racetrack. Jake Maloney all over the curb, outbraking Kurt Steinberg quite a lot, but then going a little bit wide, but enough to get him the inside into the hairpin. Kurt Steinberg will try and drive around the outside. No, he's not going to be able to do that. Tries to switch back, but Jake Maloney's just too good. He is so fast around this racetrack, and I think if anything racier in this race than he was in race 1.
He's come into this race angry, I think. He missed out on the shootout. That was almost a carbon copy of what must have been around this lap in the first race. Jake Maloney and Kurt Steinberg side by side through sectors 1 and 2 until that hairpin, and just Jake Maloney managed to hang on to that inside. Gets himself onto the outside of turn 5, and then it turns into the inside of the hairpin. Kurt Steinberg, though, is within touching distance. He's going to have a go down into turn 1, but he just brakes a little bit too early and just doesn't give himself the opportunity. Slides a little, but manages to hold onto it. He is right on the back of Jake Maloney. Might be able to have a go down into turn 5. He's managed to match him for pace out of turn 1. And my goodness, this little wiggly section through into turn 5, he holds right onto the back of Jake Maloney's bumper. Jake is going to be all over the inside of this hairpin, and Kurt just outbraking himself, locking up into that hairpin. He did that all through race 1, and he's done it so far all through race 2, and he loses all of his traction and just can't get the tires to bite into that corner. I don't know if it's something to do with his setup, but you would expect him to know how to set it up. We keep setting him up to knock him down, saying he built this track, he should know how to race it, but at the moment he's been shown how to race it by both Jake Maloney, Thomas Mcmillan, and not to forget Ethan Warren, who currently has a 3.5 second lead over Thomas Mcmillan.
I certainly wouldn't say that Jake Maloney being quicker than Kurt Steinberg is paying any disrespect to Kurt Steinberg as well. He's an incredibly fast peddler, and that is no mean feat. Now, Thomas Mcmillan has had a pretty scruffy middle sector on the previous lap, dropped 7/10 to Ethan Warren, and that gap now out to 3.5 seconds. Jake Maloney's catching up to Thomas at a fair old rate of knots now. So let's have a look at the previous lap time for Jake Maloney. 105.0. Look at that one from Thomas Mcmillan. 106.3. Not only has he dropped a second and a half to Ethan Warren, he's dropped a second and a half to Jake Maloney. So we're going to see a change of position for second place in a very short amount of time if that continues.
He's eating into that margin. It is now under 1 second, or thereabouts on 1 second. Kurt Steinberg remaining in... just gets a terrible run through the last corner there. Oversteers a tiny bit on the entry, and that is completely messed up his run down the start-finish straight. He is now almost 2 seconds behind Jake Maloney. I don't want to count him out, but I would say that is Kurt Steinberg spoken for the time being.
Now, just a quick mention to some of these guys who've been the big movers in this race. Jinx, in his first drive as a non-wildcard in this championship, up 5 spots from where he started, up into 9th place. So great job from him. Scott Nolan, the other one I wanted to pay tribute to. He had a pretty poor qualifying session, but he's up into 11th place, also up 5 spots from where he started. And he's just ever so slightly ahead of Adam Zeitinger and Oz Rob. So a number of guys there doing a good job at the moment.
And just behind Oz Rob, we do have Zach Baker, who was involved in that incident early on in the race, has found his way back up to 14th, so he's gained 4 positions since then. Still down 10 from the position he started in, but he's been setting some blistering lap times as opposed to those around him. A 105.7 last time around, which isn't incredible compared to the front runners, but compared to those guys ahead of him, with a 106.4 and a 106.4 and a 106.4, he is definitely chipping into that particular buffer between himself and Oz Rob and the cars ahead of him, including Adam Zeitinger and Scott Nolan. As you said, he is going to be right on the back of the War-S engineering car into the first corner, as we have Ethan Warren just strolling away at the moment, 5 seconds, or the better part thereof, over Thomas Mcmillan, who is increasingly coming under attack from Jake Maloney. 0.3 of a second, Stairs.
Yeah, that's going to be something that I anticipate I'll be screaming about in the next minute or so, because that has come down a remarkable amount from the last time that we caught wind of these two, and a little bit of a moment there, a little bit of a wiggle there for Jake Maloney. Thomas Mcmillan is in quite deep out of the final corner, and a great run now out of there for Jake Maloney. Thomas Mcmillan goes straight to the inside to try and defend, but look at the speed advantage Jake Maloney has. Thomas Mcmillan, though, has got some good straight line speed in that ZB Commodore. As they go down the straight, Thomas Mcmillan is going to have to be the master of the late breakers to get around the outside of Thomas Mcmillan, but that's what he did in race 1. But Thomas Mcmillan just edges away through the exit of the corner, and Jake Maloney doesn't have any overlap. He'll try. Is he going to dive down? It's not the done thing. He seems to just sort of sneak up on the cars, drive around the outside of them, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I guess I better yield that position. What's he going to do try it around the hairpin? And, on the curb, Thomas Mcmillan, that may well be the moment that he lost second place in this race, because he just had to get out of the throttle momentarily, and they go side by side through the final sector. Gracious me, that was a big moment there for Jake Maloney. He had to get out of the throttle. He's going to have to try again. It was at this point last time where Thomas Mcmillan had a bit of a wiggle, but Jake Maloney's dived down the inside at the final corner, and a drag race again.
This time, though, it's Jake Maloney on the inside. Thomas Mcmillan just edging inch by inch further ahead. He'll have to be very, very brave to try and stay around the outside because Thomas Mcmillan has the inside line. There's no two ways about it. There is overlap. And Thomas Mcmillan just doesn't quite have the traction. Jake Maloney pulls clear. Thomas Mcmillan, if he can keep his nose through up alongside, he's going to have the inside to turn 5, though. Bit of curb there for Jake Maloney. He keeps the car very, very steady. And I think that will be enough to give the position to Jake Maloney. He had to fight for it, didn't he? Look how much Kurt Stenberg's caught up as they both go wide into the hairpin. But I think it's going to be advantage Jake Maloney. Kurt Stenberg, the big winner out of that. He's caught right back up.
My goodness, Stairs, have a drink. That was incredible calling from yourself. Side by side for the better part of 2 laps there between Jake Maloney and Thomas Mcmillan, but Thomas Mcmillan having to yield that position in the end. Kurt Stenberg within a second now of Thomas Mcmillan, so he's pulling himself back up onto that podium position at the moment, trying to get that job done over Thomas Mcmillan, but Thomas is going to have a slipstream behind Jake Maloney. Don't think he's going to be close enough. In fact, definitely is not going to be close enough to have a go into the first corner. But just Jake Maloney he always tries to go for that outside position around turn 5. And it's worked out for him on pretty much everybody he's tried it on so far because it translates into an inside for the hairpin. And that's exactly what he did and managed to hold on to it. Kurt Stenberg, meanwhile, has used this opportunity to get himself up within half a second. Thomas Mcmillan, very leery there. A little bit of a slide, but Kurt Stenberg also sliding. So these tyres are starting to maybe drop off a little bit. We're coming up to the halfway point of the race. We're about 14 laps in on this 35-lap race. So we're probably looking at some people ducking into the pits in the near future, and I believe some people might already have jumped in, Stairs.
Yeah, Adam Zeitinger and Jay Borg have come into the pit lane as you were saying that, so true to your word, pretty much fulfilling the prophecy that you prophesized as you were prophesizing it. And so they are going for perhaps an undercut on those around them and trying to get the benefit of fresh tyres for a couple of laps, giving themselves a little bit more pain towards the back end of this race. As we see a moment there for Thomas Mcmillan, he's going to lose 2 positions out of that. He lets through Colin Warwick, and he almost... Sorry, that's a lap car, beg your pardon. That was Jay Borg, who awkwardly came out of the pits, probably distracting Thomas Mcmillan a little bit, and lets them through. Nearly let through Kurt Stenberg, but he's held on to it. But he's still under an enormous amount of pressure as he breaks early for the hairpin. Kurt Stenberg tries to drive around the outside, and he may well get this job done because he's put himself in a great spot on the inside of the following corner as Thomas Mcmillan tries to fight back. A little bit of rubbing's racing, as they say, and Kurt Stenberg's got through. So what a bizarre set of circumstances.
There was a cigarette paper's width between Kurt Stenberg and Thomas Mcmillan as Thomas Mcmillan tried to switch from the inside to the outside after the hairpin. Kurt Stenberg looked like he was going to dive into the pits there, but Jake Maloney has dived in, so maybe he's been told to do whatever Jake Maloney doesn't. Jake Maloney in for his first pit stop on lap 15, which promotes Kurt Stenberg up into second. Oh, Thomas Mcmillan, very late break there into the first corner. I don't think Kurt was expecting that. Turned in, he's swapped up the inside. A little bit of a tap there for Thomas Mcmillan, but it's all fair in love and Automobilista Supercars. Kurt Stenberg loses out down into 3rd place. But he is going to have another go, I imagine, onto Kurt Stenberg into Thomas Mcmillan. I don't know who I'm talking about, Stairs, into the hairpin.
Whoa!
It's exactly the same as the last lap.
It is exactly the same, and then Thomas Mcmillan again got on the curb on the inside, lost all the traction. That's what happened when Jake Maloney tried to go around the outside. So he's maybe not really sure where the left side of his car is, and he's getting up onto the curb and he's losing a bit of traction. But he's trying to fight back here, and I think Kurt Stenberg's having none of it. He's tried to cut off the inside line. Thomas Mcmillan tried to go for it, and he got arrested on the exit, and pit stop for Kurt Stenberg. Oh my goodness, Thomas Mcmillan tried to dummy Jay Borg for some reason, who's already pit, and looked like he was going into the pits and then didn't. Very nearly crashed into the pit wall.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. As Frag said there, wow, I don't know how Mcmillan held on to that one. He's held on to that one at the exit of the hairpin twice. Once when Jake Maloney managed to find his way past, and the second time when Kurt Stenberg's managed to find his way past. Jake Maloney, as it happens, is coming around the last corner in 15th place. Kurt Stenberg currently trundling down the exit of the pits. Will he manage to hold on to this position? Kurt Stenberg only just leaving the pits now. Jake Maloney shoots past. That is going to be a huge advantage to Jake Maloney. One lap of fresh tyres and no battling. Kurt Stenberg, of course, trying to find that second position over Thomas Mcmillan, has wound up with about a 3-second deficit to Kurt Stenberg over Jake Maloney. So that is a shame there for Kurt Stenberg. Thomas Mcmillan, I expect, will be diving into the pits sometime soon. He is coming down the start, and he is indeed hopping in now. So missing the pit entry wall as he hit it in the first race. We'll see if he holds on to the second position over Kurt Stenberg through the pit stops.
Also into the pit lane is Corey Preston and Jinx, and while you were talking, we also saw pit stops from Will Devonish and Sean Allen. So write that down in your notebooks, because I'm not going to say it again. So that was a quick pit stop there for Thomas Mcmillan.
It was he must have pretty much filled up for the entire race.
Has he though?
Has he though? We did see previously at Winton, heartbreakingly, found himself off the podium as he is currently looking at the moment.
Oh, it's so close.
Kurt Stenberg manages to hold on to that position over Thomas Mcmillan through the pit stops, but you're correct with your screaming. It is incredibly close.
After a brief recess, the battle between Kurt Stenberg and Thomas Mcmillan will now resume. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding. Round 2. Kurt Stenberg now ahead of Thomas Mcmillan. When we last left this battle, it was Thomas Mcmillan ahead of Kurt Stenberg. So we'll see if Thomas has the pace to come back at Kurt with some fresh tyres. Kurt, of his course, has fresh tyres himself. They're currently in 9th and 10th. Don't forget that there are plenty of people ahead of him who haven't pit. I'm looking at you, Termo, Matt Lepoitovan, Aidan Schultz, Brody Steen, who is currently in the pits, and Colin Warwick, who is also currently in the pits. Oh, Colin Warwick and Brody Steen have had an accident in the pits. They have crashed into each other, which has turned Brody Steen around a little bit and has slowed Colin Warwick's exit of the pits down rather significantly. Looks as if Brody Steen's pit box happened to be directly in front of his, and so he's pulled into it, and just as he's come to a stop, Colin Warwick slammed into him. So it's a bit of an unsafe release, I would expect. I'm not sure if that's something that they actually look for in this, but to go back to something that we all care about, Thomas Mcmillan is 4/10 currently behind Kurt Stenberg, and that gap has not changed over the last lap. So, and they're coming up to some lap traffic. Well, not lap traffic, but Terma has not pit yet, but is definitely not on pace with these two men. They're coming up to him, and he might have an effect on this little battle as Jake Maloney's trying to overtake Matt Lepoitovan.
Leader in the pits. Ethan Warren is in the pits and about to come out of the pits. So breaking the race not quite in half because he's done 20 laps. So he will have a shorter stint to do on the final part of the race. We've also seen pit stops from Zach Baker, Colin Warwick, Brody Steen and Adam Zeitinger. Of course, we saw that Brody Steen and Colin Warwick were in the pits when they crashed into each other.
Zach Baker also in the pits, has found his way up into 8th place, although that might change, and indeed it does, down into 9th place as someone flies past him. Oh, now 10th place, now 11th place. I'm going to stop listing numbers. Regardless, he has found his way up from the 18th place he was in previously in the race. Thomas Mcmillan still on the back of Kurt Stenberg. This battle is going to be a watching brief for us, I believe, as we ring the bell, ding ding. Jake Maloney sort of checking out ahead, about 7 seconds behind Ethan Warren. Ethan Warren, a huge gain during those pit stops, with Jake Maloney only a couple of seconds over Matt Lepoitovan, who obviously is still yet to pit.
Yeah, but put a bookmark though on that gap between Ethan Warren and Jake Maloney. 6 seconds. That's coming down, I think, and I think Ethan Warren is going to have Jake Maloney on the back of him by the end of this race. One of the Penrite cars coming in. Is that Jay Borg again? We wait to see it come up on our live timing screen, incidentally. All the live timing can be found at RSM Clan AU. What are we looking at, Madbird?
Thomas Mcmillan, not sure if he outbroke himself or nearly hit Kurt Steinberg, but there was a big wiggle as Thomas Mcmillan came down the start-finish straight right behind Kurt Steinberg. I don't know if Kurt broke when he wasn't expecting it or something like that, but it almost wound up in a horrible accident. He tried to go for the outside, I think, and there just was nothing doing. But it's remained as it was, with Kurt Steinberg locking up into the hairpin again. Just can't seem to find his breaking point through their Stairs.
You'll be happy to know that Matt Lepoitovan is in the pits.
I am incredibly happy to hear that. That fills me with many manly emotions. Kurt Steinberg finding himself up into that sparks joy in me as Thomas Mcmillan is trying to go down the inside of Kurt Steinberg on the last corner. That would be sparking joy for Thomas Mcmillan. This is the KonMari method as he's chasing Kurt Steinberg across the track. He's going to have a go down to the first corner. I expect Kurt Steinberg going the racing line. Thomas Mcmillan going for the inside, but they break at the same time. Thomas Mcmillan just not able to get up alongside as he goes through the first corner. He's right on the rear wing of Kurt Steinberg.
Well, they both made the main straight about 10% longer by weaving so much back and forth across it. But Kurt Steinberg is coming under an immense amount of pressure from Thomas Mcmillan, and he wants every single point he can get, especially with Jake Maloney so far up the road. Fastest lap of the race for Jake Maloney last time out, 104.7. 105.1 was the lap time from Ethan Warren. 0.4 of a second taken out of his advantage. That's just dipping under 6 seconds now.
Yeah, it's about just under 6 seconds, as you said. That is almost 2 seconds smaller than it was before. Thomas Mcmillan, again, we're just seeing the same thing lap after lap around the last corner. He's almost bump drafting Kurt Steinberg down the straight. Kurt going incredibly defensive. Barely a cigarette paper's width between himself and the wall. Thomas Mcmillan trying to go around the outside of turn one. Wiggle. Doesn't manage to get the tyres to stick, but he's managed to hold on to it. He's around the outside of Kurt Steinberg at turn one. Kurt is going to, if he manages to hold on to this, which he hasn't, Kurt Steinberg's he lost the time through the first corner. He's going to have a dive down the inside. Not close enough, but Thomas Mcmillan has a little catch on the brakes. Kurt Steinberg back through into third place. Thomas Mcmillan going to go down the inside. Kurt Steinberg trying to go around the outside. Thomas Mcmillan not strong here on the inside, but he's managed to hold on to it this time. Kurt Steinberg's going to have the inside for the next corner. Turn 7. He does a little bit of a bump. Thomas Mcmillan relegated down into fourth place. Hashtag relegated. Kurt Steinberg back to the inside. Thomas Mcmillan trying to cut to the outside. Little bit of a tap. He turned in a little bit too early. Down into the last corner. Kurt Steinberg holds a very tight line. Thomas Mcmillan going to have more straight line speed down the start-finish straight. As they bump. They bump again. Oh my goodness, they're completely side by side. There is nothing between these two guys' Stairs. Oh my goodness.
This is going to end in tears, mark my words. They're still side by side. This is exactly where they were a lap ago. That was where Thomas Mcmillan had a little bit of a wiggle. He got on the inside though, and it was just marginally clear and got on the curb, but this time it's Kurt on the inside. How has he managed to go through? I think Kurt's lifted out of the throttle, but then he comes back down the inside at turn 5. Thomas Mcmillan has the inside to the hairpin. Now, a few times here, he's got up on the curb and lost all of his traction. He's gone very deep, and Kurt Steinberg now does the old switcheroo, and he has the outside line around the next corner there. They go side by side again. Liam Madbird, my co-commentator, can't handle it in the background. I'm barely able to handle it there. Kurt Steinberg a little bit on the curb. He had to get out of the throttle, but Thomas Mcmillan doesn't really have an enormous amount of traction either, and he goes a bit deep. Kurt Steinberg, though, Thomas Mcmillan wasn't able to switch back. This is about as far away as they've been from one another in the last 2 laps. I forgot what I was going to say 3 minutes ago.
Tap out, Stairs. I did the last lap. You did that one. I'll do this one. Oh my goodness, this is incredibly close. Thomas Mcmillan going for the inside. He's going to have a dive down the inside. It's just not close enough. He's not going to be able to hang on to it. Or is he? He's holding on to it down the inside. Kurt Steinberg around the outside, which turns into the inside for the 5th corner. Thomas Mcmillan. I can't even names at the moment. Thomas Mcmillan having to duck behind Kurt Steinberg. And meanwhile, behind them, there is another battle going on. My eyes are only for this. Kurt Steinberg managing to hold on to that 3rd place through turn 5. Thomas Mcmillan going to have a go into the hairpin. No, thinks better of it, but he might try to duck up the inside here coming out, but doesn't. This is the first lap that we've had where they haven't been side by side for most of it, and my goodness, I think I need a break, Stairs. As Josh Anderson says in the chat, hold your breath, Australia.
Well, Corey Preston, though, not giving us any pause for thought, is making his way past around the outside of Sean Allen, but gets a huge swapper on around the outside. He's going off into the boonies. See ya. Corey Preston's out of it. That's damage for him. I don't want to make too much light of that, but look at here, Thomas Mcmillan trying to squeeze up a very, very small gap. That reminds me of last Saturday. Kurt Steinberg, though, trying to drive it around the outside, and he's very good at doing that and keeping it locked around. As I say that, he's just lost enough traction to give Thomas Mcmillan the advantage. Down to turn 5, one more side by side. What's that?
I said there's still overlap between them, and Kurt Steinberg down the inside at turn 5, managing to hold on to it. Thomas Mcmillan tries to swap up the outside for the hairpin, tries to swap around to the inside for the hairpin. Kurt Steinberg outbrakes himself.
He's done that. Gave him the gap.
Gave him space, but Kurt Steinberg with a better run around the outside of the hairpin. We've seen that through qualifying and the race before, that the better line seems to be wide through the hairpin. Thomas Mcmillan on the outside through the last sector. Kurt Steinberg going incredibly tight. He's going to have to take a very tight line through the last corner, which is going to give him much slower straight line speed down the start-finish straight. Thomas Mcmillan with a slipstream as well, Stairs. Oh my goodness.
This may well be how it goes until the end of the race. Let's watch how they are across the line. It was Kurt Steinberg still in the lead. That may well be the kind of strategy like a Moto 3 race that you have to employ to win this battle, because no one seems to be able to break away from the other. It's going to finish like this, or it's going to end in tears for one of them. Now, Thomas Mcmillan round the outside of turn 1. All the way through down to the valley, up to turn 5. Thomas Mcmillan gets a huge wiggle on, thought he was clear, but somehow still gets it stopped for the corner without letting Kurt Steinberg through. Kurt's going to go down the inside of the hairpin. That was pretty much par for the course. Outbreaks himself. Thomas Mcmillan gets to switch back, loses the rear end, and he's gone all the way across the infield. He's going to lose a number of positions here, and that has put paid to that battle. What I said has come to fruition. It's ended in tears for one of them, and he's going to rejoin ahead of Adam Zeitinger, I believe that is, down in 7th place. What disaster for Thomas Mcmillan, but take your hat off. You've given us one hell of a show.
Oh my goodness. I think I'm on one hand I'm upset that that's happened. Thomas Mcmillan down 5 places now in 7th place. But at the same time, I think my throat at the end of the day is going to be quite happy about it, because I think I was honestly losing my voice. We've had some incredible comments here in the chat of people along with us, as it looks as if not Kurt Steinberg, Colin Warwick and Sean Allen incredibly close for 4th place. Colin Warwick very wide through the first corner. Sean Allen trying to get up closer. Colin Warwick with a little lock up there through turn 5, but looks like he's got the margin into the hairpin, manages to hold on to it, and but Sean Allen is all over the back of him through that hairpin, and on the exit he is under half a second. This is going to be very close down the start-finish straight. Just to finish my thought, as Colin Warwick dips a tyre on the grass, manages to hold on to it. Just to finish my thought, my goodness, that was an incredible few laps. I think I know what my Instagram highlight's going to be this week.
It was very hard for me to cut down the highlights of the last round into something approaching 3 minutes. It's going to be even harder to do it again. But let's take a quick stock take before anything else happens of what's going on in this race. Ethan Warren has a 5-second advantage over Jake Maloney. It's coming down, but I don't think it's coming down fast enough. And I say that with my hand firmly touched on the wood for Ethan Warren. That I don't think that it's going to come down fast enough for Jake Maloney to put Ethan Warren under too much pressure. Kurt Steinberg's in a fairly lonely old 3rd place right now. Colin Warwick is now coming under pressure from a very aggressive Sean Allen, who barges his way past into 4th place. Yeah, I think let's have a look at a replay of that. Colin Warwick may well be understandably upset at that one. That was a very, very long way to come back and dive for the corner. There was overlap there, but I mean, he really only made the corner because he smashed into the side of Colin Warwick, so I'm sure that incident will have people on both sides of the fence about it, but the long and the short of it is that Sean Allen now has moved up into 4th place to
the detriment of Colin Warwick. Corey Preston is recovered up to 6th place after we saw him out in the boonies not too long ago, so that was quite interesting. Nigel Marneef down 1 position from where he started, up in 7th place. Been a roller coaster for him, coming under a bit of pressure from Brodie Steen. Jinx in 9th, and Scott Nolan. Great job from him, up into 10th place, and Thomas Mcmillan has retired from the race.
We got a note in the chat saying, from iMacar, saying, who was on their roof down the straight? Mcmillan? And then Josh Anderson has chipped in and said, yeah, he's dead. So I'm assuming that Thomas Mcmillan has had an almighty crash, which is too long ago. Too long ago to find the replay. So we're just going to have to assume there that he's had a big accident, which is a damn shame and a very bad way to end what, to quote Josh Anderson, was some absurdly good racing, and definitely some of the best that we've seen so far in this series. Very well done with your stock take, Stairs. Sean Allen up 5 positions from his starting position, but we are now looking at Brodie Steen trying to get past Nigel Marneef, who, after his incredible start, which turned out to be a terrible start, just nowhere to go with the pace that he had off the line, he's managed to find his way back up to 7th, which is still 1 position short of where he started the race. Brodie Steen, however, is wanting to push him back down one more peg, as he's searching after that 7th place. And who else have we got? Who are the big movers? Sean Allen up 5 positions. And Jake Maloney, I don't think it needs to be said, is up 8 positions from his start, and is doing incredibly well. And Kurt Steinberg, after what was a hairy few laps for himself, Thomas Mcmillan, and the commentary box, has managed to hold on to that 3rd place. My throat still hurts, Stairs. I can't get over that.
Yeah, well, Kurt Stenberg's well on his way to the Triple Crown of thirds, with 3rd place in race 1 and the shootout, and where he started race 2, he's currently in 3rd, but that certainly does not tell the entire story of this race. Thomas Mcmillan and Kurt Stenberg showing each other incredible respect, and what a show they put on for us. I think they both deserve a beer for that. So Sean Allen, as you said before, up 5 spots. Probably would have been, I think, preferably 4 spots from Colin Warwick's point of view after he barged through at turn 5 a couple of laps ago. I just want to spend a bit more time talking about Jinx. This is his first time not as a wild card, as I said earlier on in this category, and doing a great job. Top 10 from him. Not under any sort of pressure at the moment, but just 3 laps to go, and a very decent haul of points for him. So we welcome him with open arms to the category, and a good livery design on that car, I should say. And Scott Nolan, good to see him back in the top 10 as well, flying the flag for Synergy Sim Racing, which unfortunately has been a bit underrepresented in recent rounds. It's good to see them back, and like to see them do well.
Yeah, the only Synergy Sim Racing car currently in this particular race. As Scott Nolan goes very wide through the last sector. Managed to save it. Hashtag saved it. He's
just
managed.
Like Bob Ross.
Fantastic. Oh, I was going to say something. It's completely gone. No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I can't believe they were on lap 33 of 35, Stairs. That middle stint after the pit stops just absolutely flew by. I'm overtaken with amazement. But Brodie Steen is putting the pressure on Nigel Marneef, and they're both locking up into the hairpin.
Yeah, it's not over yet. There's still the very small matter of 7th place to be decided. And if not for that little wiggle from Brodie Steen out of the hairpin, that would be a little bit closer than it is right now. But I think Nigel Marneef just struggling with grip at the moment. It's been a fantastic run from Nige. And good to see a Nissan up there in the top 10 as well. But
on your Nige.
On your Nige. My school bus driver when I was a kid was called Nigel Nilsson. And if you're still alive, you're probably not, considering how old you were when I was 10, 20 years ago. That was... I appreciated you driving me to and from school every day. Don't know why I brought that up. But Nigel Marneef, wide at turn 1. Maybe that's his line, though. Gets a good exit out of there.
I'm still just I honestly can't say that I remember any of my school bus drivers' names. Nigel Munif with a lock up there through turn
Had a
5.
sticker at the front of the bus that said your bus driver's name is Nigel.
Oh, that's nice. Nigel Munif very deep at the hairpin. Brody Steen up alongside him at the exit. Nigel Munif is going to have the inside through the 7th corner, I suppose. I don't know the names of any of these. As they're heading down towards the start-finish straight, it is now under turn 7. Cool, that's what it's called. As they're coming down towards the final corner. Don't know if that's got a name. Probably the final
Turn
corner.
14.
Turn 14. As they come around that corner, Nigel Munif seems to have a better run through it. Brody Steen with a very tight line, which is not going to help his straight line speed. Trying to get a slipstream on the back of Nigel Munif down into turn 1. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. As we've got Frag showing his sympathy in the chat, #RipNige. And we've got Mr. Walshy asking, what sort of shifter is Jinx using? Not sure.
No, I don't know that particular thing, but what I do know is that Ethan Warren is about to come across the line to complete the Triple Crown, in fact. After claiming pole position in both races, he is now the race winner in Darwin and emulates the real-life achievements of Scott McLaughlin in claiming the Triple Crown ahead of Jake Maloney, who finishes 2nd in both races, and Kurt Steinberg, who finishes 3rd in both races. But by Jove, we had a very different script to get to both of those results, and in essentially in quite quiet form, Kurt Steinberg comes across the line, considering what sort of a race that was. Sean Allen in 4th, ahead of Colin Warwick, finishing 5th. A little bit less trouble on his brakes that time. Corey Preston finishes in 6th place, ahead of Nigel Munif. So he holds out Brody Steen in the end. And what was the margin? We'll have a look at that in a moment. Jinx finishes in 9th place, and Scott Nolan rounds out the top 10, although not exactly that close. Not exactly that comfortable, as Aidan Schultz caught up in the final moments of the race.
Yeah, it was, as you said, same results, but quite a different story there for Kurt Steinberg in particular, but definitely also Jake Maloney fighting his way up from 10th place. Kurt Steinberg, quite a lonely race in the in race 1. Fought off Thomas Mcmillan's charge, and then just sort of poodled home in 3rd place in the first race. In the second race, it was almost like one of those horrible Christmases where your entire family rocks up out of nowhere and you were not expecting it, and they just won't go away. To probably give Thomas Mcmillan not enough credit.
I love that analogy.
For the incredible racing that we were shown between Kurt Steinberg and Thomas Mcmillan. Thomas Mcmillan, unfortunately, not getting any share of the biscuits. 19th position and a DNF on lap, I want to say, I'm not even sure, but regardless, deserved a better result than a DNF. 27, lap 27, he crashed out, as we've got the 1st, 2nd and 3rd position runners forming up on the pit straight. Beautiful shot there, and Ethan
Brings a tear to the eye.
does bring a tear to the eye. Ethan Warren there, surrounded by our co-tagonists, Jake Maloney and Kurt Steinberg. My goodness, Stairs, I think we both need a breath.
Oh, there's a wheel. What's going on there? I suppose we should investigate the cause of that. What happened? A wheel has come... It's come rolling down the start line and smashed into the back of Kurt Steinberg's car, coming to rest there on the start-finish straight. So, if we didn't need another surprise, well, we've had another surprise. Let's to be fair to say, that's occurred. But more celebrations, of course, from the front two, as Ethan Warren and Kurt Steinberg have a bit of an 11s competition, which is quite comfortably won by Ethan Warren, who's riding a very, very long 11s, and great job from him. Richly deserved.
Long 11s, also known as 22. I'm still quite like to know whose wheel that actually was that wanted to be on the podium, but regardless, my goodness, incredible racing, as a couple of people say in the chat there. Great broadcasting, guys. Thank you very much. and all racing needs to be this good. I think we can all heartily agree on that. I'm sure we'll plug this at the end, but if you want to see some more excellent broadcasting, make sure you tune in to Apex Rear Wing tomorrow night for the first round of our DRM's championship.
Yes, I can't wait. I hope my voice backs up for tomorrow night, but great gracious me. If I was a bit worried tonight, tomorrow night's going to be interesting with those turbo-powered monsters. We're going to take a short break because we need a break, frankly, to prepare to have a chat to some of the drivers in that race, in both of those races, because, well, I think we just need to congratulate them on giving us such a fantastic show. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome to the previous round recap brought to you by Apex Rear Wing. A flawless Jake Maloney led away from pole position at the Winton Super Sprint in round 6, as Ethan Warren came under threat at the first corner from Barbagallo race winner Sean Allen. But it didn't work out for the Race on Oz driver, and he would lose out on the next corner to an opportunistic Kurt Steinberg, eager to protect his championship lead. After dropping out of qualifying, Thomas Mcmillan, starting from the back, was on an absolute tear, forcing his way through the field until a spin from an ambitious dive on David Nenadich dropped him back a couple of positions. Meanwhile, closer to the front, the narrow Winton circuit was claiming victims, as Steinberg found himself just marginally wide at the turn 5 sweeper, a big enough error to allow Sean Allen back up to third place. A double retirement was very costly for War Race Engineering, Will Devonish with a malfunctioning paddle shifter and Oz Rob with a connection issue. They were joined as non-finishers by Michael Ford, Emily Jones and Colin Warwick in what proved to be an attritional race. Fighting back, Kurt Steinberg threw everything at Sean Allen, but the round 5 winner was able to withstand the pressure and hold on to third place. No one could touch Jake Maloney, who came home to take the victory by 10 seconds over Ethan Warren. The big mover was Thomas Mcmillan, up 12 spots from his starting position to finish 7th. A fierce qualifying battle kicked off the action for race 2, with pole changing hands 3 times in the final minute of the session. Maloney, Mcmillan and Ethan Warren all having a turn. But it was Maloney who nabbed it back at the death and resisted another late charge from Ethan Warren, who ended up just 0.02 of a second off pole position. Race 2 got underway at a light simmer, without too many close battles to speak of. The main talking point of the opening laps was Sean Allen arguing over 5th place with Colin Warwick after losing the spot to him at the start. Jake Maloney once again drove off into the distance with Ethan Warren holding off the charge from Thomas Mcmillan, who was eager to grab 2nd place. The pit stops proved disastrous for Mcmillan, overshooting his pit box and losing at least 5 seconds in the process.
I saw him reverse.
Coming out of the pits on cold tyres, Colin Warwick would lose a net 5th place to Sean Allen, who already had his tyres up to temperature. Unseen on the broadcast, Kurt Steinberg lost a huge amount of time during the pit stop phase, dropping a number of positions. After many laps keeping Colin Warwick at bay, Sean Allen made a rare mistake and spun around at turn 9, falling back towards Zach Baker and Kurt Steinberg, giving Kurt an opportunity to climb past both of them. The race was not without a few more surprises though, as Steinberg again made a couple of critical errors and allowed Sean Allen through for 5th. Kurt fought back as hard as he could, but ultimately could not wrestle back the position. Jake Maloney took over the championship lead with another dominant drive, taking victory by 15 seconds over 2nd place man Ethan Warren. During the final stint, Colin Warwick had been quietly chipping away at Thomas Mcmillan, who had been significantly fuel saving after his botched pit stop, and heartbreakingly fell short of the podium when his car coughed coming out of the final corner.
Colin Warwick gets onto the podium at the death!
Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Wherever you're watching, around the country, or indeed the world. We're here in Kota,
Monaco, Sydney, Imola, Shanghai, Albert Park, Austria, Suzuka.
Down the inside of public, and there's contact.
Spun out already.
They've had the double stop.
Tyres that you could dig them up and look at them on the fossil records.
So-
It's Usain Bolt of hairpins.
It's missing a rear tyre.
Welcome back to Hidden Valley Raceway. Madbird, we've just experienced An eargasm, I think, is the word that someone used in the live chat. What an incredible set of races we've just had. The race winner, Ethan Warren, we'll probably have a chat to him first because it's been an absolutely flawless night for him. The Triple Crown, if you like. 2 race wins and pole position in the shootout. How did you do it, Ethan?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We're just able to take advantage of mistakes, I guess. Unfortunate for Maloney to get disconnected before quali, so I did a bit easier.
You just seem to have the pace over him, though. Like that, even after the pit stops, Jake didn't seem to have the pace to reel you in. You just sort of seemed to be strolling away at the front.
Yeah, we were just looking after tyres, and it did help that he was battling with Thomas and Stenny and all that, so these tyres would have got a bit, yeah.
Oh, just lost the last bit of what you said there. But many congratulations, Ethan, on an absolutely flawless round. I bet you're very pleased with that.
Yeah, pretty happy. Thanks for the broadcast, and yeah.
Very much so. Turning our attention quickly to Jake Maloney, it was an interesting race 1 and race 2 from you. You were fighting back in both races, much more so, of course, in race 2. And as we just heard from Ethan, there's a connection issue dropping you out of the shootout.
Yeah, I made a bit of a mistake and probably alt-tabbed when I shouldn't have, and yeah, that put me out for the shootout. So had to leave that and start 10th. But I suppose luckily I had a fair bit of fun coming through the field in both of the races.
Well,
so that was quite.
It certainly looked like it. You were up to 5th in no time flat. Of course, the next 5 positions a little bit harder. Fighting with Kurt Steinberg in both races looked like he was. There was a few times when you had the job done, and then he would fight back. Very, very entertaining for ourselves.
Yeah, it was, and it was fun to drive in as well. This track seemed to promote pretty good side-by-side racing, and yeah, it was quite fun to be.
And it must be satisfying. You've finished ahead of your closest championship rival in both races, so extending the lead at the top of the championship a little bit further.
Yeah, that was pretty good. See what happens after the Enduros, I suppose.
That's right, a long, long time left in this championship. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Jake Maloney. Let's turn our attention to Kurt Steinberg and Thomas Mcmillan, if we can. I think the battle of race 2, at least, side by side for pretty much 4 laps. I want to say 8 laps. I don't know. It was a very, very long battle. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. That was, I tell you, bloody awesome. That was the best battle I've had. Probably the best battle I've ever had, I should say. But yeah, we were side by side for, I reckon, 3 laps straight. We were side by side around the whole track, and it was interesting. Steady's car was better through the corners, but my car was set up for straight line speed, so I'd catch him down the straights, and it was so much fun. Door-to-door racing, I love it.
It was fantastic for us to watch and commentate on. We had to tag out each lap because you were using up all of our lung capacity with our screeching and attempting to cover all of the action. It seemed like both of you were one lap. One of you would have the inside into turn 5 and then the outside into the hairpin, and the next lap it would be the other person. And it just seemed to neither of you could get the advantage over the other one. Just very even and very exciting racing from the both of yous.
Yeah, I was very surprised how many places you can go side by side and get the crisscross out. It was very surprising. I thought it was just only, 2 passing spots, but it seems to be that you can pass it the whole track.
That's that's my takeaway, is that the entire track seems to be an overtaking opportunity. Do we have Kurt Steinberg in the comm box to have a chat as well? How did you find the battle there with Mr. Mcmillan?
That was unreal. Well, it started before the pit stops, and then it kept going. He seemed to have more straight line than me. My car seemed to be better around the corners. Yeah, that was insane. I think I've been on every part of the racetrack in every possible scenario tonight, on either the outside, inside, middle, taking every line into every corner that's possible.
As someone that actually built the track, that's probably saying something. Is that you've been all over the track a bit more than you usually would have tonight.
Yeah, I've definitely learnt more about my own circuit.
Excuse me, fantastic. Well, very surprising then that you were able to get third place in all of the sessions that counted, the shootout and both races. You probably wouldn't have thought that when you're in the middle of these battles. Both races very, very different for you. But the long and the short of it, you end up with the same position in each session.
Yeah, well, it worked out well, didn't it? Race one, I got a good start, so that really helped. And I was trying to go at Ethan for the win and probably burnt my tyres up a bit, but it was surprising to be third in the shootout. I didn't really have very good qualifying pace here, but I knew that it'd be a bit better in the race. And yeah, to get third in that last one was pretty good. So I thought Mcmillan might, our battle, I thought he might get me, but he made the mistake, so it worked out for me. So third in all sessions, that's not too bad. I didn't have the pace to match the other two, so good result.
Absolutely. Well, this championship just continues to surprise, doesn't it? Thank you very much to everyone for joining us for a bit of a chat post-race. Hope your heart rates have returned somewhat towards their normal resting pulse. We're about out of time. Don't forget to chuck the Newcastle 200 in your calendar if you enjoyed that one. 3 weeks' time, Tuesday the 9th of July. But if you can't wait that long for your next fix of racing, Apex Rear Wing's brand new season kicks off tomorrow night at the Brno circuit in the crazy turbocharged German DRM monsters. Matt Dunlop will be joining me in commentary for that one, starting at 8:45 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Just search Apex Rear Wing on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram for all the details. And Madbird, you'll be on track for that one. Looking forward to it?
Tentatively, the cars are to call them bloody hairy would be a disrespect to gorillas and other animals that have a lot of hair. But my goodness, they are very Larry vehicles, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how we do. Capris, Porsches, M1s, and BMW 320s. So all going to be going off tomorrow night.
Absolutely, I can't wait. And of course, while you're busy liking all the Apex Rear Wing social media apps, don't forget to give Automobilista Supercars Championship a like and a sub as well, so you don't miss anything in the inaugural Automobilista Supercars Championship. We can't wait to bring you the rest of the championship. We hope you can't wait to watch it all. I've been Stairs.
And I've been Madbird.
Bye for now.
I'll see you later.